Hello, and welcome to the Old Farm Bus Podcast. This is the Back of the Bus session.
Hello and welcome to the Old Farm Bus Back of the Bus Sessions podcast. Today I've got an old mate on with. You're not an old mate. I just called you an old mate and I thought, you're not really old.
I am. Not as old as white dog shit.
I've just known you a long time.
That's it, yeah.
That's what I meant to say. I thought, don't offend him as we start.
No, I can live with that, mate. If I had a shave, I wouldn't look like an old mate.
Yeah, like me now.
Yeah.
I told you about my beard story. Hot, bothered, sweaty, itchy.
Get it gone.
Gone.
Mate.
Welcome aboard, Owen Oxley from Full Reptile.
Yeah. How you doing, man?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Really good.
I've
really
missed
good.
you.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been, what, a couple of years?
Well, I've seen you around.
Obviously, we've been catching up. Yeah.
And you're one of my nicest mates because you've helped us out. I mean, I owe you a lot.
Right, it's only ever one. It's only ever one. I will always owe you one. You will always owe me one. There's no stacking up. There's no books. There's no
me,
debt.
Mate. I've got a whole booklet out there. I'm like,
No.
Right, tech. What if I give him probably a pack of crisps or something sometime when you've come here?
Don't you worry. No, you've always
Mate,
got my back. I got your back. That's as simple as it is, man.
You've been awesome to us. But I've seen you dotted about. But I think for the podcast we did together, which was episode 14, 15.
Really?
Yeah, we're on 102 now.
Well, there you
103.
go. OG.
But yeah, I reckon it was genuinely 2 years ago more.
Yeah.
It's been a while, mate.
Yeah.
How's Full Reptile developed since that time? How was it through COVID for you?
It was weird because...
You're allowed to say that word anymore.
What, COVID?
Yeah, demonetised.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah. Is it real? It was strange because obviously the collective as itself is there's five of us originally. Obviously there's the Raptors as well, which are part of the core group. And when it sort of shut down, I mean the gym was closed. I wasn't going to see Dan as much. So I was still managing to sort of take care of orders and things. But a lot of our stuff, because it's quite a free company. Mm-hmm. There's no like, there is structure, but there's no whip cracking. Do you know what I mean? Because being a creative, and you know this yourself, a lot of stuff will come from just an inspiration of seeing something or being somewhere or doing something different. And when I first started working with Dan, I used to ring him and I'd almost justify my time for a week. I've been doing this, I've been doing that, and he'd be like, bro, like, you're good. I've got your back. You're good. Don't worry about it. And I got to the point where I hit a bit of a block and I couldn't get my head around like a new collection or something that we were doing. And I kept forcing it, kept trying to force it. And obviously I've got the kids off. They're losing their fucking mind. My wife's ready to kill everyone. The whole house is out of toilet roll. So it got to the point where I sort of, even though I'm not seeing Dan, because Dan lives, well, he's out Leicester way. I'm not going to give his full address clearly, but he's out Leicester way. And it was always still is a wicked time to get there because it's just, I don't know what it is about the juju in his house, but everything is just chill. Don't fucking panic. Everything's good. And you still get a lot of work done, but in comparison to my house, which is just having kids and a normal everyday house, what I was finding was when I'd go and see Dan, I would be able to get a lot more done, or we would have a chat. And from what we've had a chat about, I'd have a million things that I could get on with. By not seeing him, I'd sort of puckled my brain a bit. So initially lockdown was kind of difficult because you've got the normal like worries and fears and all the other shit that goes with it. But I also had I'm not getting my work done. So once I'd spoken to him and he was like, listen, just take it easy. It'll all come. It's no problem. And it got to about 3 weeks in that I stayed up one night. Stacey was going to bed. I said, I'm just going to have a play, 5 minutes. And I literally did a whole collection in about 2 hours. But I smashed this whole thing together, made a whole document, PDF, sent it all to Dan, loved it. And obviously it's all been released and sold out and whatever since. But it was me taking the pressure off myself that, and I wouldn't necessarily say it was just COVID that brought it on, but I'm obviously an old dude. I've had a lot of jobs, and any other job I've ever been in has always been pressure. There's always been, yeah, but what next? You just made 25 grand in that minute. Where's the next 25? You're like, fuck, man. Come on, like, just Can we at least sit down and have a drink?
Biscuit.
You know what I mean? Yeah, let's just have a biscuit break.
Kit Kat.
Exactly. So it's good, and I mean, like you say, you're indebted to me. I am forever indebted to Dan, just from everything that we've been through and set up and done. It's always felt like a partnership. It's always felt like everyone's voice can be heard. So as much as I'm a designer and I will draw something, there's literally no issue with us changing it all or changing nothing. But it's always it's a group discussion, or there's a justification to something, if that makes sense. So the reason why we use these sweatshirts or we use these t-shirts or whatever it is, it's always collective.
Yeah.
And for me, that side of things massively supported me during COVID, because having the lockdown and all the rest of it, when I'm out and I'm normally the kids are at school and I'm at work, I'm walking the dogs with the kids, just trying to get out of the house and clear my brain. Whereas there was no pressure really from anyone else to say, should we not have a new t-shirt design in the next 20 minutes, or should we be recording a podcast? Do you know what I mean? It was really good. So for me, I think the main benefit I can take away from it is that we experienced it, we came out the other side, and it's still good. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
completely.
like you suffered the worst, so the best can only be better.
And why is Dan like that? Why has he got such a chill Buddhist philosophy attitude?
Honestly, man,
Has he always been like that?
I wouldn't say he's always been like that. I mean, I was talking to someone the other day. I did Lewis's podcast, Norton MMA, who is a super fan and a really, really, really intelligent, well-spoken guy when it comes to MMA. And he's one of Dan's, he's a huge fan, but he's known him as a fighter.
Yeah.
Whereas because people saw him either as a commentator or an analyst or whatever it is, it's very different to see that Dan and to see the guy that was intense and screaming at Bruce Buffer, ready to go and take someone's head off. And I knew them both, and I can see the different hats that he wears.
Yeah.
And the thing for me is, I think it's a really strange thing to see, because me and him are very similar in age. I think there's literally 1 year and 1 month between it. Throughout all the podcasts we've had, our childhoods were almost exactly the same as far as experiences, hardships, toys,
Comic books.
literally you name it, man. And it's one of them that he's always explained it as, we've got hive brain. So we'll stand there and he'll go, "Oh, I've got an idea," and he'll explain the idea, and I've literally drawn it 10 seconds before, and I'm like, "You mean like this?" And he's like, "That's the one." So there's a lot of it where I wouldn't say it was a character. Like, so you know when you see Conor McGregor and you see the Notorious,
Yeah.
that's a character.
100%.
Whereas Dan was the outlaw. And I wouldn't have said that was necessarily a character, because he has fought his way to get to that point. Because to be a British MMA person back in the day, a fighter, was so much few and far between to what it is now. So what he learnt and experienced, I think it's a maturity. And I think we all get it. I mean, you thought you knew everything at 16. I thought I knew everything at 16. We were dickheads. Same as when we got to 20, 25. We're still
ouch.
dickheads.
Just hit me.
But we're still there, aren't we? But you can look back. And if you can't look back and know
cringe.
that you were fucking stupid when you were 16, you're still stupid.
Yeah.
Because it's those lessons that sort of sweep your legs. Do you know what I mean? So the philosophy that I see with him now is, it is very much more like, let's see how this comes organically. And then there's still work. He's the hardest working person I've known, because he's up and down the country, all over the place, forever recording. His brain doesn't stop, and he's got flip charts, and his brain is unloaded into flip charts, which I don't know if that keeps him sane, but it's the same as all of us. We all have good days and bad days. Little things can rattle us, but I just think it's a maturity. I genuinely do, because he's been there and experienced it at the highest level. He's seen the money, he's seen the fame, he's seen some people achieve and not achieve, and then to know he's riding his own path or carving his own groove. It's a lot better, because when you see some of the other names in the MMA world that are now having to go and find jobs or do this or do that because they didn't make good decisions, that brings a lot more stress with it. Is that making sense? Am I answering the question?
100%.
Oh, good.
And we were discussing before a little bit about the evolution of MMA.
Yeah.
And how fighters are conducting themselves so much differently now.
Yeah.
I used to really enjoy watching The Ultimate Fighters.
Yeah.
And I was saying to you, season 1, season 2, it's like Big Brother, wasn't it?
Yeah, big time.
And it was all sort of hyperbole, really exaggerated, everyone angry, get them together, and it was that Big Brother aspect of it. Oh, this is just entertaining, and I suppose that's what brought a big crowd aside.
Yeah.
And I was telling you about, what was that fighter that threw everyone's clothes into the pool and just went around crying, I just want to love you, man, and then he wanted to fight him in this second.
He's fighting bare knuckle now.
Is he?
I just want to bang, bro.
Yeah, I just want to bang, bro. But that was what most of it was. Even Diaz and so on were part of that.
That was the edit.
Yeah,
that was the shock factor to draw people in. Because Dana White has been quoted saying, "Fighting is in our DNA. We get it and we like it." You can find that clip a million times. Dana saying that, and it's true because it's the shock factor. It's the intensity. It's the adrenaline you get from seeing two people trying to take each other out.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things, especially when it comes to MMA, it was taking the cockfighting side of things, which people were dead against, and just shaving the edges off to make it so we were legal and it was good. But you still had the brutality that was the thing to highlight, to get people in. Because as much as you've got, even if you split the population across educated and like for whatever degree of education you've always got an audience of people that want to see someone fighting.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if they're the smartest person in the world or they're a bit of a derp. It doesn't matter.
I'm not a derp for a while.
Oh, mate, it's me and the kids all the time. So because you're building an audience from that, it's good, but it only gets you so far. But the problem is when you go back, and even if you look at the origin of MMA with the Gracies, Hoist Gracie was half the size of everyone else, and he beat them with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that no one understood. So as much as, it was barbaric and brutal and all the rest of it, all these words that people want to put to it, and it wasn't really as educated or as respected as it is now, they were still there. Not that long ago, like Rich Franklin was the middleweight champion. He was a decorated middleweight champion. I think he defended his belt 3 times. He came up, he fought. He was on The Ultimate Fighter season 2, and it's the only time that coaches. So there was him and Matt Hughes that were coaches for season 2 that didn't fight. All the other coaches have fought each other. Obviously, they did. So Rich Franklin was a school teacher.
Yeah.
A fucking super smart, intelligent dude. But that's not always the narrative that they want to go down, or that's not always the narrative that's pushed. So when you're seeing people now, you're getting more of a real understanding of who they are. Like Dan said to me, when he fought GSP for the title, his interviews weren't, "What's your tactics? How are you going to beat this guy? This guy's incredible. He's just fluid and he knows everything that there is to know." It wasn't questions about his tactics or anything like that. It was trying to educate people what MMA was.
Right, okay.
So it's really difficult because essentially the narrative of barbarian and all the rest of it worked for a spell because it got bombs on seats. But then it kind of, over time, it just starts building this negative sort of background, which realistically, it was, it was kind of unregulated to a degree. But it's so far different now, but not that much different. It just depends what's filmed.
To Full Reptile today, I listened to it quite a bit. I enjoy your voice, mate.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
But, hearing Dan speak, really articulate, got a lovely way of presenting himself.
Yeah.
And then you put that across the board. Felder, you look at GSP, I listen to a lot. He's on a guy called Carnivore Code.
Yes.
Him and him speak a lot. But it's just so much intellect inside of how they voice themselves. And then the people in the game now who got fights coming up, they're talking about it and dissecting it in a very different light.
Yeah.
Whereas I suppose we've grown up, I was a 90s kid, but seeing wrestling and how they had to conduct themselves.
Bit of a pantomime.
Pantomime, build it up, yo bro, and it was this testosterone fueled stuff. And it just feels different now. I like the amount of thought that goes into how they're conducting themselves. And I suppose that's what you're talking about with Dan as well. he knew fighting had a very short lifespan.
Yeah.
After that, you've got to be able to think about, do I do analysis for the fights? Do I have a business? Do I build this up? And
Exactly.
it's always thinking of this maturity outside of the sport as well. And I just enjoy seeing it. And
yeah, and but there are still shitheads out there that will take advantage of people.
Don't get me wrong. Sometimes when I see a bit of a McGregor coming back and saying stuff, it does get me pumped a bit.
Yeah,
but
you want the pantomime, you want the little bit of fuel, but it's like, I mean, I suppose for me, when you think of mixed martial arts, you think of all the disciplines that are involved. Not only are there all the disciplines, you have to remember them, and there's a counter to all the actions, and there's also counters to the counters. So to say that they're not educated is really difficult, because ultimately, if they can't articulate the fact that they're educated, is different to them knowing what they're doing. And when they're being interviewed, or when they're going into a fight that's essentially a fight of their life, every time they're asked to break down their job. So I mean, if I asked you now, if I needed you to break down video editing or any single part of your job, you would sound like a genius. Because you've been doing this for that long that it's become part of your lifeblood. Same as with me, I wasn't educated as a graphic designer, but I can take you through Illustrator, and I can take you on a little tour, and you'd have a wicked time, because being self-taught is slightly different to going through and doing everything by the book, because there's little shortcuts and whatnot. But there are still people that will take advantage. There's still people, and there's still dickheads that will roll people over. Like there was a champion called Johnny Hendricks. And Johnny Hendricks came through just after GSP vacated the title, and he had one-shot knockout power. He was an absolute savage. It was before USADA came in, so there's a little bit of a, have you had some of them special Smarties?
Yeah, is he okay?
Not saying he has, not saying he hasn't, but his management team got him locked into a contract that I think he lost half his purse each time he fought.
Yeah.
Not only that, he opened a steak restaurant that failed. And I talk about this quite a bit with Dan when there's the distractions of MMA, because for me, watching it the amount of time I've watched it and seeing the people rise and fall that I've seen come through, there's the distraction that go from the hunger. So when a fighter, like someone like Dan, that moved to America, slept in a car, eating tins of tuna, like literally breadline, because this is a place I need to do it, and this is where I'm going to hone my craft. Obviously, he went to China and he did all these other things, and there's a lot of fighters that do that. So they struggle. But the minute they get more money than they need, or an offer for Fast and the Furious 8. Like Francis Ngannou was in the last Fast and the Furious. He didn't talk. He was just a bad guy that was on a big gun. And it might have just been an experience. But even Ronda, she did it. She went into the film world, which is brilliant and so interesting and fantastic that they've got that opportunity, because they're not seen as cage fight or cockfighters anymore.
Yeah.
But when before their main focus was on honing their craft and getting to the point where they have the belt and retain it and do whatever they want to do, once your distractions start pinging off, like when you had Ella, it's one of them that you're not 100% focused now, because you want to sit down and watch cartoons, or you want to see a walk, or you want to feed her something, or do something cool with the kids. So it happens the same with fighters. So if they haven't got a good support network like Johnny Hendricks, I mean, he lost millions. And you just imagine that. You go from being the absolute dogs do dapper dons to them being yesterday's chip paper. It's a strange world to see, because as a viewer from the outside looking in, and someone like myself who's completely obsessed with every bit of it, it's kind of heartbreaking when you see these people achieve and make all this money for everyone else, and then they're not necessarily looked after. Do you know? That's why there's a big fighter pay thing at the minute, and the health issues and all the rest of it. That's so vocal at the moment, especially with obviously Jake Paul and everyone else.
Oh mate,
but it's good.
How do you feel surrounding the Jake Paul sort of YouTube style of boxing and stuff? Do you enjoy it? Are you happy with all the eyes that it's bringing to attention? Yeah, I mean, did you watch though one of the worst things I think ever happened to sport, the Askren fight?
It
broke my heart, mate.
If you rang Ben Askren now and said to him, "How do you feel about that?" he would laugh his tits off. He made $1 million.
Did you not see him? He looked like a crumbled man to me. Do you know when he was sat in that? Not just afterwards. This is the before math.
Yeah.
But it was just an odd spectacle. But you know, I was really conflicted, and like you say, with having Ella, my baby, and I've got a different mentality when it comes to kids now.
Yeah.
I love them, and I'm being quite conscious about what content they're seeing.
Yeah.
And it makes you think.
It changes your vision.
It does. Yeah. And there was a rapper come on who my mate loves, but he was going, smack my whore, bitch, smack your wife, smack my bitch. And I was like, what's he saying? What's going on? And then there was just so much nonsensical language being used. Oscar De La Hoya, I don't mind marijuana at all, but he was high as a kite up there. It was just loads of substance being used. Snoop Dogg was there. They had a slap competition.
Yeah.
Then there were just I think there was 5% of actual sport on the night.
Yeah.
It was a massive music festival, really, but with horrible language.
Yeah.
Really strange concept. And I remember when they had Ben Askren, this interview is a bit of a jerk, really. Maybe again an entertainer, but he's gone in and I'm sure Ben just looked really broken in that moment.
Yeah.
And I was feeling it. I kept switching off and it was the first time I've ever took to Twitter.
Yeah.
Because I know people are very vocal on there. And I thought, I've got to find out what people are saying about this because I can't be the only one feeling what I'm feeling. And everyone was going, what is happening? What is this? But where were you at in listening to that?
For me, it's the dickhead spectacle.
You're happy with it?
Mate, look, if I made a football match now,
yes,
right, that was a football match full of, I don't know, ex-cons, rappers, just...
Longest yard.
Exactly. If I made that, and then I got Hulk Hogan as a guest referee, I got, I don't know, Mr. T as a guest referee, Sly Stallone as a guest referee, and Louis Spence...
Yeah, of course.
People would watch because it's the curiosity. There is a massive curiosity all the time. So it doesn't matter if you've got a super fine-tuned product like the UFC, which is drug tested and all the rest of it. The UFC was born out of, can a boxer beat a karate guy?
Yeah.
Can a karate guy beat a taekwondo guy? So that question still ticks because instead of us seeing these people that are fully disciplined in one fight sport, or in one discipline, they train all. So mixed martial arts truly is mixed martial arts now. So you don't get people that are an absolute, like Habib, insane wrestler. Because from being a child, he wrestled a bear. So if you can pull someone to the floor and maul them, it doesn't matter if you know how to throw a punch. You can dominate them and stifle their movement within seconds. I mean, knowing jiu-jitsu, knowing the smallest amount of jiu-jitsu is one of the most refreshing things in the world because someone can be fucking about and you can just take their legs out and just hold them down. And literally, because you can manipulate their movement by very small pressure points, that's a good feeling. And I'm not saying that you do it as a jock dickhead, but like there's a video of Matt Serra, who is obviously a superstar in the MMA world, and he subdues a guy in like a McDonald's or something. And he wasn't doing it to be a prick. This guy was upsetting a whole family restaurant, so he just held him down till the police got there. And he's smaller than me in size, but I mean, he's built like a fucking tank. But it's one of them. So when it comes to the bubblegum side of it, so for every polished, perfect outlet you've got the scummy one. And you're gonna watch the scummy one. Everyone will.
I'm in full agreement to that. Because I will watch any fight now. That's my YouTube rabbit holes, and honestly, I'm lost then. I've seen some of the maddest shit.
And a woman fighting a pensioner and a kid at the same time.
They're always rushing as well, aren't they? In a Russian ring.
They don't give a fuck.
I watched, that was a recent one, wasn't it? There was this big woman.
28-year-old woman
fighting
against
an
a 75-year-old.
And a 16-year-old.
And his grandson.
I watched all of them. I loved them. And even with the bear wrestling and stuff, watch it. It's mauling and the bear's enjoying it, I hope.
This is it. But it's years ago that we don't fucking know.
But I love that. I can really vibe even with YouTubers boxing one another.
Yeah.
It's just the behind, like, what you see, the spectacle.
Yeah.
Until that fight comes on. That's what I just can't get involved in because my curiosity's there and I just want to watch fighting for the night.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why they have to bring all this ridiculous nonsensicalness behind it because it's just wasting my time. But that's where I'm at.
It's kind of a toxic freak show, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because what they want from 3 hours of footage is half a dozen 5-minute clips that can be on Instagram.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Half a dozen 5-minute clips
Here's
that
Justin
can be on Twitter.
Bieber.
Yeah, because basically everyone's addicted to their phone. Everyone's addicted to social media. We can't help it. It's a natural thing. It's a normal thing that everyone is just... They either want to know that someone likes something they've done as in a personal post, or they want to be snooping on someone else, or just being nosy in everyone else's life, or just be a part of everything that's happening. And because of social media, it's a double-edged sword, because it's the best thing and it's the worst thing at the same time. But for them to have Oscar De La Hoya there, Snoop there, and all the rest of it, it's cost them however much. So they need to make some back by either selling pay-per-views or whatever it is, and to be able to grab someone's attention. I think, is it a 30-second clip you need to get someone's attention? Or less.
What you're saying makes a lot of sense right now.
Exactly.
Yeah, I see where you're going.
So they have to ham everything up to the spec. And this is only
also
my opinion.
appeal for everybody.
Exactly. So if you see 5 of the clips and you're like, oh, still shit, but then you see one clip with a person you like,
Yeah.
So it could be Snoop, and take Snoop as an example. Snoop was in prison. Snoop has committed crimes, and he was directing porn at one point, but now he's a household name, and like a beloved novelty and a lovely guy. But
The king of the dogs.
exactly, but he's got his own background, he's got his own history, he's got his own like gang culture and all the rest of it. That essentially, when I was growing up in the 90s, I couldn't buy a Snoop record. I wasn't old enough. I got it, don't get me wrong, but I shouldn't have had it.
You've really... You've made me feel a bit differently to it, because I've just thought of it's like a party with 100 people there, and if you look on Instagram and you're like, oh, that person, they're there. It doesn't make sense, all of the people that are there together, and it probably won't be the best party, because the best parties are when you're 5 or 6 mates who belong there, and you're all vibing and having a good time there. That's what really works. But because you've seen it on social media and you're thinking, well, all the craziest people imaginable are together, I've got to get down.
To be amazing.
And then you do turn up and you're like, oh, I knew I should have stayed at home and played Call of Duty.
And that's it.
Really?
Because it is that it's an absolute curiosity all the time, and it goes back to, it is literally the old school freak show, because you just wonder. Like, the thing is,
I'll watch them, but I'll never pay for them.
Exactly.
That's my rule.
And I think a lot of them would expect that, because essentially what it's doing is building someone's profile. It's like even when Brock Lesnar came over. Did he lose his first? Or I think he fought Hong Man Choi, which was a bit of a freak show sort of. I don't know if I'm allowed to use the word freak show anymore, but you know what I mean by saying it. It's
demonetized.
Yeah,
again.
well, I'll forget it. But it's one of them where essentially you've got a wrestler that's a professional wrestler but has got a collegiate wrestling background as well, so can actually wrestle, against Hong Man Choi, who's like 9 foot tall, fucking insane dude.
I remember this.
And then when he came to the UFC, he fought Frank Mir. And Frank Mir is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I mean, he's a fucking hulk of a dude. But he was dwarfed by Brock, and he caught him in a knee bar. So he kind of showed him up. But if Brock had been in the Triller world, and I'm not saying that Brock didn't go on to do extra things, because he was a massive dude. But basically, if you talk to someone today about Jake Paul compared to this time last year he had no chance. He was discounted at every turn. The difference is, what you got to look at is, he's a kid that's got nothing to worry about. So as far as money goes, he's got no worries, essentially. So that helps, because even if you look at the roster of the UFC fighters at the moment, a number of them will still have a job, or they have had jobs in the past that they have to support this, because they have to pay their coaches, they have to pay their gym fees, they have to pay all their different bits and bobs to be able to get the best training. Whereas Jake Paul has essentially put a cheat card in the back and gone, who's the very best trainer? Oh, cool. Yeah, well, let's go there. And who else do I need? That. And it shows you the power of youth and the YouTube nation, because his followers and Jake Paul's power is from his audience, which is essentially built up from all the kids and everyone that he's interacted with over the past 10 years. And he's put leg in. He's put time in to build that. And he could basically go, I think I'm going to do baseball. I'm going to do basketball. And the curiosity of it all is that we would tune in to see how the fuck are you going to get on with that. Because at the moment, the thing that is the worst thing for someone like Dana White is that he kept succeeding. So the fact that no one expected him to do anything with Ben Askren. If it was MMA, all day. He would have ankle picked him and submitted him in seconds because Ben Askren he's a mauler, he's a savage, but he was never a boxer. So when you look at somebody like Jake Paul, who basically all the people he's fought is at least a weight class above them, he's a well-built lad. I mean, I know obviously Dana's on about steroids. I can't say if it is or isn't. I mean, I think ultimately he's a young athlete that has trained.
He's been doing it all his life. He'd been wrestling, hadn't he?
Yeah, of course.
Since 15.
Yeah.
And he's got into university for wrestling.
And he's naturally gifted. Look at the size of him. I mean, me and you grew up in a very similar area. We're a different frame. We're a different build. You can do different stuff at the gym. I don't even go to the gym. But it's just those choices that change someone. So when you look at Jake Paul, as much as it's a bit of a joke, it's also super interesting because with any athlete, it doesn't matter who it is. When Michael Jordan went and said, I'm going to go and do golf or baseball or whatever, you're like, all right. There's been other athletes in the MMA. There was a guy called Herschel Walker when Strikeforce was still a thing. Herschel Walker was, I think he did athletics and he did American football. And then he started MMA. Yeah. And was winning at like 40 something. Which
Sonny
was
Bill
unheard
Williams
of
as well.
Yeah.
He was a rugby player and then went boxer.
Yeah. But that's amazing.
I love to see the crossovers. And it is just athleticism.
Yeah.
They've got good genetics.
Yeah.
They look the part. They could play most sports. And then when it starts getting into the technique side, which UFC relies heavily on, it's a different game. And
Completely.
I'm very interested to see Jake Paul against a genuine boxer now.
Yeah.
Somebody who does know the technique of boxing, that not being hit and hitting.
Yeah.
That'd be great to see because the fighters and the fights he's had, when they get irritated by him and they just want to kill him, they're throwing bombs and then he picks them out and bam, it's down. And that's what it takes for boxing.
But I think the main thing that's got everyone talking about Jake Paul is because he's kind of polarizing. Because it's very, very similar to Conor, Brock, all these other people, even Ronda. You either tune in because you want to see him get knocked out, or you want to tune in to see if he can back up what he said he was going to do.
100%.
So you never know. And the problem is because he is such an athletic dude, it's not like someone like Hoist Gracie's come along, this tiny little dude, and all of a sudden gone, I'm going to kill anyone. Because you probably wouldn't believe it unless you saw it in the early days. Whereas now with someone like Jake, he's using this platform essentially to try and better the whole position for everyone, which is a good thing. So he's drawing a bit of fan base. But at the same time, he's got to where he's got by trash talking and being a bit of a goofy twat. Yeah. Which, mate, if it wasn't for being a goofy twat, I probably wouldn't have a job. So
give you that.
Do you know what I mean? You've got to sort of sometimes sit back and work out what is behind the camera or what's set up, what's not set up. And like me and Dan were talking, and he was saying, imagine if they were in it together. And they were making this massive shitstorm. And basically, it was just raising the profile of everyone, of fight sports. Because there was a time, I mean, I left Egg in 2011. And the whole time, I was there 10 years. The whole time I was there, I was obsessed with MMA. And I would always be wearing mixed martial arts stuff. And the amount of people that wouldn't even know what it is. I'm not expecting them to, but like, if you walk along with a football shirt on, I know exactly what that is. I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to brands and stuff because obviously being a designer, I see stuff as shapes. So it's one of them that I can drill straight into it. But there was someone that once had an MMA t-shirt on, and I went up to them. I was like, "Oh, friend, fucking brilliant!" Ran straight over. I was like, "Dude, did you watch the fights last night?" And he's like, "What fights?" I was like, "What?" And he's like, "What fights?" And I was like, "You wearing a tap out shirt?" And this is before tap out was shit. And he was like, I don't know what it is. My mum got it me from Sports Direct. And I was like, oh, God. Okay. But now it's constantly spoken about. It's constantly, it's almost put in there with like rugby, football, cricket, tennis, all this other stuff. And it's not like seen as a dirty thing as much anymore. But
and do you think that's because of some pivotal figures in the sport? McGregor, for example.
Yeah, I mean, having a homegrown person, and I know I'm claiming him as obviously the UK, but he's Irish. Having someone that is making these big moves, because for Conor, when he came in, he wasn't a disrespectful scumbag. He was a a confident person that essentially he knew he needed to get his foot in the door. Once his foot was in the door, he could show them. And I think, same again, similar as a double-edged sword, that the fact he was saying what he was going to do and doing it, it helped and hindered at the same time, because it just catapulted him. It catapulted him into this stratosphere that then lined him up with fight with Mayweather. Which the thing is, you can't take anything away from that. That's an amazing achievement. And for him to get his money, and basically, he was a guy that was a plumbing. He wasn't even a plumber. He was like an apprentice plumber, and he fucking hated it. But he's now paid his mum and dad's cars off, his house off, and everyone's good. And he looks after his own little group. And from what I can see, I think that he is a very loyal bloke that looks after people. But he's also very aware of the pantomime. He knows that he has to remain relevant all the time. So it doesn't matter that he got his leg broken. It doesn't matter that he got choked out. He can still come back with a little bit of this and that. And because of that, because people are constantly talking about that, and it is people like Conor and Brock and Ronda and all the rest of them, but that sort of raise it for it to become a household name. And I mean, to be fair, anyone I've ever worked with, and they'll all tell you, Stacey's cousin, he got every UFC that's ever been. There you go, you're watching them, you like it now. He's like, well, okay. Then the guys I used to sit with Dan at work, he like literally, I would force it onto everybody. Chris, you name it, they would all get it, because to me it was my football. So I was obsessed with trying to spread this word, because there's nothing like it. There's nothing like seeing a fight either live or watching it and following the careers of these different people. And I think for me, it was an obvious thing that was always going to happen. But it wasn't until you get someone like Conor. It wasn't until you get someone that you can either relate to, or you've got that you can almost wear as a bit of a badge, but like, yeah, we'll follow him.
Do you think the fighters have had to change the way that they fight now, in a way, because there's so many eyes turned to it? It's becoming the mainstream, and people want entertainment as much as possible. And when I used to watch it back in the day a bit, and they're grappling, you have to sort of know what they're doing in there, don't you?
Yeah.
You can get very confused, and that can turn people away a bit.
Yeah.
But then the fights that are really spoken about are the ones where they've been throwing bombs, like Ferguson or so on.
Yeah.
And people are just, oh my God, that was the fight of the night. That was
Exactly.
so much energy. And are fighters considering that when they're getting into the cage, or do they just want to win, or do they think, do you know what? I want to gain a fan base here. I need to make this as crazy as possible.
I think it's a difficult one, obviously, with me not being a fighter. It's difficult. I mean, I can say what I've seen and what I've taken from it, because you've got diehard fans that I will watch the first fight to the last fight. I'll watch it all the way through, and essentially, I know this guy's put a 3-month camp in, or this lady's put a 3-month camp in to really try really hard and obviously better themselves in their position. But there's a rule in the UFC: if you lose 3, you normally cut. It's quite a rigorous thing. So, with that in mind, you've got someone that's coming in like Paddy Pimblett that made his debut. He was buzzing. He was just so excited to show off his skill set on the main stage, and he's the type of person that will kill or be killed. Yeah. And you get a number of them. The problem with that is what happens, because the level of competition as you grow gets harder, or someone will show you something you've never seen before, which sounds insane, but it happens a lot. You get to the point where you get this little bit of doubt in your mind. You look down, and on the back of your gloves it says the UFC, which is that's the Premier League. And now I'm in there. I kind of want to stay. So when you get someone and you look back, even at GSP's career, GSP was finishing people, but then he got the belt, and it was a bit more of a calculated. And obviously, he's fighting the top end all the time at this point and defending, and not taking anything away from GSP, but the fire didn't seem the same. And I think you see that with some people when they're trying desperately to think, I need to keep this contract, or I need to be careful, or whatever it is. So I think ultimately you can't really change a fighter, because they're not all the same. They're so different. But for a casual fan, you've got a million clips. If you wake up on a Sunday morning and you go to Instagram, it doesn't matter if it's Strikeforce, Bellator. I know Strikeforce isn't there anymore, but you know what I mean. Strikeforce, Bellator, UFC, Pride, Dream, PFL, all these guys. There's going to be enough clips. There's going to be enough knockouts out of each fight, or enough highlight finishes or highlight attacks that you can put into Instagram that someone like my dad. My dad loves fighting, big boxing fan. He'll come and watch, but he knows that the wrestling and the jiu-jitsu is a fantastic discipline, but he wants to see someone getting rattled. So I show him highlights, and he loves that because he doesn't necessarily want to sit and watch a whole event.
No,
which is fine. But diehards, you sit and you watch the whole thing. So it's kind of one of them things that you're not ever really going to change. And for me, the thing that I was always saying to people was, look, if you get a boring boxing fight, you got to wait 12 rounds. That's a fucking long time for a boring fight, because not only, and this isn't, I'm not saying boxing's boring, but there has been the odd occasional boring fight. And because of that, you've got the build up to the fight. You've then got the fight. You've then got the shit after the fight. You've got the adverts in between. That's a fucking long time to sit and want to see someone getting sparked.
Dedicate your time to.
Exactly. In MMA, if it's a boring fight, it's 15 minutes. And they get started on their feet. So even as a complete, like, someone that's never been into fighting or has no knowledge or experience or anything, they don't want to see the grappling, it's going to start on their feet. And the takedown will probably be spectacular. You might not like the grappling, or you might not like the positional work they're using on the floor, but even in those 5-minute sections of each round, there's going to be bits that are still going to keep your attention. And I think that's what's made MMA more entertaining, because you get the pantomime of the UFC, of WWE, WWF, because you hear people, and that was it for me. With wrestling, it was all about the pantomime. It's like, what's Bret Hart going to do? Or what's Shawn Michaels going to do? Or, do you know what I mean? Roddy Piper.
A story.
And it was always a story. Whereas with MMA, mate, you say that, you need to fucking back yourself up, because the amount of times you'd see someone have a little bit of argy-bargy, you're actually going to have a fist fight at the end of this. This isn't like a pre-scripted choreographed routine that you're going to work through.
Yeah.
He's going to fucking try and kill you.
Yeah.
And you're going to try and kill him.
Careful who you're saying it to.
Exactly. But it's always super
it.
exciting and super interesting, because you might get someone who's really quiet. And so when you've got someone like Conor giving it all this, and Nate Diaz isn't necessarily a big talker. And that's why when Nate just finished him up and just said, I'm not surprised.
I like, I think Rogan said it, but he said it's high-level problem solving with maximum destruction.
Yeah.
And I thought, that
all
is
in a split
exactly
second.
what it is. You're constantly weighing up the character, but you've got devastation coming if you don't weigh it up in the right time and moment. And that's what you're watching out for, isn't it? So it's beautiful. It's got the bittersweetness behind it. It's a chess match.
Yeah.
But you could
you could be starched.
KO'd and,
But it's similar to that when you were saying about the party analogy you used a minute ago. The best parties are the ones you don't expect. They're the ones that you don't set up, you don't plan, and then before you know it, it's 3 o'clock and you hang around with like 3 or 4 of your really close friends. You're like, fucking hell, man. What a wicked night. You can't recreate it. Same as if you've ever had a holiday. Me and Stacey had a holiday to Greece in, 2002. And it was one of those holidays that we met the best people.
Yeah.
And I would go back there every week if I could. But I knew even if I forced it and got those people back, it wouldn't be the same. And it's similar to when you're waiting or expecting for a fight coming up. So you look at someone like Francis Ngannou. So Francis Ngannou, who is a devastating knockout heavyweight animal, and you've got Derek Lewis, who's also a heavyweight devastating animal. That just, this is going to be fucking fire.
Yeah.
And the whole thing has been built that it's going to be amazing. It's going to be the best thing ever, and blah 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 blah. And you get to the day, and it's a fucking snooze fest. It's a piece of shit.
It was, wasn't it?
And it's just one of them things. But they are calculating risk. They are then thinking, I've got to the very top, and if I get sparked by this fucking idiot, I'm going to look like a fool. And he's thinking exactly the same.
Yeah.
So it's more of a shadow match.
And especially in the heavyweight division, it's
Exactly.
possible at any moment.
Yeah.
So you really do have to be switched on.
But you have to watch it all. So even if you've got the prelims or you've got... So there's a lot of fights. There's Golden Ticket a number of the lads from the gym fight on Golden Ticket, or you've got Cage Warriors. It doesn't necessarily have to be the UFC or Bellator or PFL or whoever it is. For me, I would stand at the back of Sainsbury's in a car park and watch two guys fight. I don't care. I just want to see the fights.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you can see all the fights, then quite often, even when Dana comes out and he does the press conference and he'll say fight of the night was X, Y, and Z, or whoever gets the bonuses, a number of them will be undercard. And it's so imperative that you go back and look, because they're going to be the next champions. Definitely. Do you know what I mean? But we do put a lot of pressure on people. We especially like Francis Ngannou and all the rest of it, because obviously with the whole fighter pay that's being just dredged up and sort of dragged about, you're not just focusing on fighting anymore. You're not just focusing on what your job is. You're trying to manage everything that's got you to this point, because realistically, getting to the dance, you don't necessarily have a voice. Because if someone came to you now and said, all right, I'll give you a UFC contract, you're not going to question it too much, because they might not give you any more.
Yeah.
So you go, oh, okay. And then before you know it, you look back and you're like, oh, that's kind of shit. I wish it was better. But you didn't have the stature to be able to demand better. Yeah. Whereas that's why a lot of people, when you see them and they'll say they're fighting out of their contract, or this is their last fight on the contract, you see them maybe go a bit harder or try, because they want to be able to get into that meeting with a better resume to go, right, you owe me this now, motherfucker, or I'm bouncing. And that's, it's difficult, because you want everyone to be able to achieve and succeed and be wealthy. But it's just, it is kind of in that infancy still, where a lot of it is hidden. Does that make sense?
Oh, completely, yeah.
Which is, it's kind of sad.
Being brought out a bit more now, isn't it? It's being spoken about.
By someone like Jake Paul. Who the fuck would have thought that?
Yeah, good point.
It's good point. Though, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, they warranted that money. Why is it so little in MMA at the moment for fighters?
Mate, it's so difficult, because the thing is, the problem that you got when you look at something like the UFC, their marketing. So you take it back to talking to anyone about MMA, and this is only my opinion again, and again, I'm a bit of a fucking idiot, so it might not be right. When you've got...
You're an expert on this, bus, mate.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's bad, isn't it? I mean, you're the experts. When you say Premier League, everyone knows the Premier League. There's one place you're going, and that is the creme de la creme. That's the Rolls Royce. When you say MMA, or you say cage fighting, or whatever you want, the UFC organically sits at the top of that. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are the premier organization, or there is a governing body that puts them at the top, and then everyone else is in a union or whatever. But because of the time and energy and effort that has been put into it, it has risen them to the top. And essentially they acquisition Strikeforce, which was huge. They took Pride, which was their biggest competitor in Japan. I mean, Pride was fucking bonkers. It was in a ring. And if you haven't seen the fights, go and watch the fights. They're fucking brilliant.
Is that not the one with the American and the other guy where they're just punching?
Don Fry?
Yeah.
Or is it Dan Seven? Could have been Dan Seven.
Don Fry.
It could be Don Fry, yeah.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Was that in Pride?
Yeah. Brilliant, right?
That was so fun.
Just like Rock'em Sock'em Robots. So, because they acquisition all this stuff, and because they have been building the brand, and the brand's never really deviated from being the premier organisation at any point, that everyone sort of raises to them. And I was talking to Dan about it, because I like Bellator, I like PFL, I like all the other organisations, but I can't tell you who's fighting on Saturday for Bellator. I can't tell you who's fighting for PFL, and I can't tell you all of the others. But the UFC have got marketing fucking nailed. So Israel Adesanya is fighting Robert Whittaker this weekend. We know that. We know that Derek Lewis is fighting Tai Tuivasa. We know that there's going to be 5, maybe 6 episodes of UFC on the blog. You know, the what's it called? Archive. Well, no, UFC. I'm going to fucking look, because that's going to really annoy me.
But I do that so many times in a podcast.
It's the UFC Embedded. It didn't.
It just came to
so
your
UFC
head.
Embedded. But then you've got Tuesday's way. Tuesday is fighter a fighter. It's not weigh-in, but it's like a press conference, and then you've got the weigh-ins on a Friday. So we know fight week we're going to hit all these points. So when I was sat in an office at Egg or wherever, I knew Monday I can talk to my friend about last weekend's fights. Amazing, best thing I've ever seen. Yeah, brilliant. Ready for next week. So then Monday I've got my first embedded. Then I get my weigh-ins. Then I get my press conference. Then it all starts to build, and it's the train just starts building momentum the whole time. And the card could be a pile of shit, but I will sit through it. Yeah. Same as any film, same as anything. And you get through it and you go, well, there was something I could take away from that. And before you're distracted or your attention is taken anywhere else, UFC have got you hooked back in again. And it doesn't matter if there's 2 weeks between fights or whatever it is, the way that they do it and the way that it's so organic and natural, because they don't really edit a lot of stuff out. They don't really like stop people. Obviously, there's some stuff, but it always feels like I'm sat with Israel Adesanya or I'm sat with Robert Whittaker.
They just know how the mechanism works.
Yeah. So it's it's amazing. It's like all they're doing is the very best marketing for someone who's interested in that sport. And for me, it kind of gets frustrating because it almost comes down to the Xbox or PlayStation debate. Why? I don't know. I've always had PlayStations. I had Xbox for 360, and then I'm back on PlayStation. But there are bits that I love about PlayStation, and there's bits that were amazing about Xbox. I've never been able to work out why the fuck no one at Sony walked in with an Xbox and went, right, watch this. Look how quick the party chat is. How good's that? And they were like, oh my God, maybe we'll do that. It's the fucking research been done, man. Just do what they're doing. So because the UFC have got this thing locked down, for anyone else, just replicate that. Just follow someone around with a camera. Just make a bit more noise. And I don't know if it's a manpower thing or a monetary thing or a finance, whatever it is. But if you're doing it on the UFC, surely you can do a version on whichever other platform because that is what sells all of it. Yeah. And because they are so current, like literally, I mean, I could ring Dan now and say, what's the next 7 cards? And he'll go, all right, so it's this, because he knows. And I know he obviously has to research it, but I know what's coming up. I know what's on the horizon. I know what fights are coming because it's constantly just pushed into you the whole time. So even during events, and it's not in an ugly way. It's not like it's selling it to you. Go, oh, don't forget this month, we've got this, and this coming. You're like, oh, fucking hell, I forgot they were fighting. But then before you know it, you got the embedded, and then you got another thing and another thing. And I think for me, that's just how they've got so. Yeah. That's how they've got so big. So the question wasn't even that, was it? It's why aren't they being paid? So I think because they have got this massive following and they've put themselves at the top, they can sort of choose what they do. And that's why when they sign people, they can say, yeah, come across. But I think the lowest wage now, and this isn't me knowing everything, I think it's 10 and 10 or 8 and 8. Okay. And that's if you win. Yeah. So $8,000 to fight, $8,000 win bonus. So you're walking away with 16 if you win. But then you got to pay for medicals. You think they've got to pay for their COVID test now. They've got to pay for coaches.
It's going to change, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really. Yeah. Because it's so obvious to people and it's been spoken about so much. When you see the sheer amount of people being involved with it, you see the numbers for the pay-per-views and so on. People add up money and they go, hang on, these guys definitely warrant more of this. They're putting their actual lives at stake here. Yeah. And I can feel that change coming. It's not far from football's level, is it? And so on.
Exactly.
So,
and I think...
I mean, what was Ronaldo? 100 million?
It's fucking insane. That just doesn't make sense to me.
100 million.
It doesn't make sense.
That shows where money is.
Yeah, mate, it's there. But the problem is the rich stay rich. And that's true with everything. That's true with everything. Anyone who's got money and is ruthless about getting money will be able to cover your eyes to see how they've done it because they want to keep more.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
And that's it. I've dealt with a lot of rich people, and it's a toxic kind of thing because they can put on this.
You're having a boxing fight over
I
there.
am
Yeah.
taking the mic out.
Got you on a good subject.
Yeah, but they have this the mask that they can pull over.
Yeah.
So it's almost controlling
And they
you
can
to get to the
downplay where
Completely.
they're at. And
yeah, always. It's always downplayed. Whereas when you get someone who is naturally just a nice person that is willing to do anything with you and work with you, that always makes you suspicious because you've been so used to the scumbags that have rolled you over in the past. But
is that how you felt with Dan at
oh,
the
mate,
start? Is that...
well, I've known Dan long enough that when this opportunity arose, I knew it was genuine because he actually came in. Well, we met at my house a number of times, and it was more important to him to talk to me and Stace as a pair because he knew how much this affected as our life, and that meant so much more to me than anything else. Because for me, if you can be friends and you don't have to pretend that you know everything about me or whatever, but like if you can't remember my kids' names and we've worked together for 5 years, that's a fucking problem, man.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Did you have that at places?
Oh,
before?
yeah. I've had that a few times. But it's one of them things because I'm quite expressive and quite passionate. People will see there's little bits of things that they see in me that, I can use you for that. Oh, man, you're good for that. And you can do graphic design. Oh, you can fix computers. And you can do fucking DIY. And I'm not trying to like big myself up or give myself a fucking big list of accolades. But once they realise that I'm not just a scummy twat that can do bits and bobs, then I can put you to work doing all this stuff. But then it's not really always appreciated. Do you know what I mean? Whereas it's like with, if you watch Dan's breakdowns, when he's got the canvas on his back wall in his house.
Yeah.
So that was from the UFC London where Volkov fought Verdum. So that was 2017, 2018. 18, I think. So that's in his house, and he said, "I'm going to get the canvas." I said, "Yeah, no worries. Just let me know when you get it. I'll bring the tools and I'll put it up." No, fucking no way. You don't have to do that. Don't worry about doing that. I'll get someone. I was like, "You fucking won't." And he's like, "No. It's good. Don't worry." And he was more conscious about me feeling like I'm not being exploited, but being taken the piss of, because that's not my job within this world. But literally, I went round there and we did it, and we put it all up, and it's fine, and it's still up there. It's still stayed up, so I can take some confidence knowing that my work's good. But it's more having the person that they're not doing that thing. When your nan offers you a 10, you're like, no. Are you sure? Do you know what I mean? It's more. There's a genuine element to it, but I think it's difficult, isn't it, man? The problem is you've just got to be aware of fuckers. There are so many out there, and I try and go back to that, just a bit more relaxed. Just every so often I see it on Instagram. There's a quote by Robin Williams, and Robin Williams essentially built my childhood. It was all
I can feel it.
All Robin Williams films. So when I see something that he said, I'm like, okay, no worries, Robin. And I think
this makes sense.
It's something like, regardless, always be kind. Like you never know what battle someone's fighting, so regardless, always be kind. And it can hit me at some point after I've had a big blowout with the kids or with Stace or with whatever I'm doing. Everyone's human. Everyone's normal. It happens. I've got a 13-year-old at the minute. That's fucking insane, and it's hard because they don't know that they don't like you anymore. They just naturally don't like you anymore. You're just a prick to them, and that's normal. We've all been there, but it's fucking hard when you're invested and you want to be a part of their life.
Yeah,
they kind of want you anymore.
Mate. You're gonna get me.
Mate, it's fucking horrible, Jimmy. So I was at Dan's once, and it's when Moo was about 11, and 11 or 12, and he looked at me because his daughter is 1 year older, and bear in mind, Jimmy is he's a professional, one of the best in the UK, an amazing fighter, lovely bloke, and he's just a fucking savage dude. He's rock hard, and we were talking about kids, and he just looked at me, and the biggest grin came on his face, and he was like, "How old's yours now?" And I was like, "I think she's going to say 11 and a half." And he's like, "Oh, okay, just you wait." And I was like, nah, not my kids. No, best mates. We'll be fine. I'm the biggest kid of them all. We'll be playing Lego until they're fucking 60.
Oh,
all
no.
good. And it's just happened naturally. And she fucking, it's so difficult. And she's not doing anything. She's just growing up and being a teenager.
What is an anecdotal moment you can sort of grab at where you thought, why'd you hate me?
Mate, I could have spun her head. I could have spun her head the other day. And so it's just a normal thing. Tidy your room, bring your pots down, stop taking a piss. And the thing is, because you carry them to shit, so like you'll make them breakfast in the morning and you'll get their bag ready or you'll get their uniform ready. Then you'll ask them the tiniest thing and they'll go, that's not for me to do. You're like, are you fucking serious? And because you build it up on yourself and you make a rod for your own back, you get mad when that comes true. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like at the minute, it's just teenagers. I can't even say that it's just mine. It's just normal for everyone. But I've started doing this thing where I'm making them cook. So both of my kids love cooking because I love cooking. Mm-hmm. So because we were realizing that we're doing a bit too much and like sort of not being taken advantage of, but we're doing that much that when we ask them to do something that's so minute, like I'll say to the girls, can one of you feed the dogs? And we've got 3 dogs. And they'll have an argument over who feeds 2 dogs and who feeds 1. And I'm like, whoa. Oh, man. How fucking spoiled are you? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know when you're saying, well, I'm going to take your iPad and your phone and your telly and your Switch and your Xbox, you're like, hold on. I think I'm spoiling them. And it's only when you realise, because I didn't grow up with everything. And you kind of grow up wanting to give them everything you didn't have.
Yeah.
But it's not the same struggle and it's not the same achievement when they got what you didn't have, if that makes sense.
Yeah, brilliant sense.
So
yeah, I love what you're saying.
When I said to Stacey the other day, I says, we'll make them cook. Because Moo loves cooking and she's a really good cook. And she's really good at flavour pairing and all the rest of it. She's when it comes to it, I've always said that my brain isn't an academic brain, that I can't remember my times table. I can tell you fought on UFC 70. I can't remember times table. And whichever teacher back in the day said to us, you're not going to be able to carry a calculator around every day. Well, fuck you, dude. Yes, I can. So I said to her, we'll make them once a week, just once a week. And it's not like I'm not going to be there. I'm going to stand with her. I'm going to do it with her. I'm going to cook and all the rest of it. And so I said to her, what are you doing tonight to cook? Oh, it's not fair. No way. Oh, I just want to get in. I just want to relax. And all she wanted was everything we wanted. Just to get in, have a brew, do fuck all. But unfortunately, the world just doesn't stop spinning at that point. Because if we don't do your packed lunch for tomorrow, we're going to have to do it in the morning. That's shit. If we don't get everything ready, it's not like, unfortunately, little boxes have to be ticked. So if we all tick them together, it makes it fucking easier. And I like to think, and David, one of my closest friends, he said this the other day. And he said, he's not a bad person. He's just an honest cunt. And I'm sorry if that word offends. But to me, it's so true. Because I don't...
Great saying.
But I don't bullshit the kids. I tell them as straight as it needs to be. But they still argue like a child if you were trying to like sugarcoat something. So I try and remind them, like, listen, I'm not deviating on this. I'm telling you what we're doing for a reason, just so we can all benefit. So if we all tick the boxes together, we can all sit down and do fuck all.
When you bring in that rationality, is it listened to?
No. Because
I was really hoping you'd say,
no, it's not.
Actually, when I get on my knees and I look eye to eye and I hold a hand.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
She's with.
And because Stace was a nursery nurse and she sees things different to me. Like I was saying, David, who's a counsellor and a genius, he's the cleverest person I know. He's told me before, teenagers don't have rationale. They don't understand. So when I'm telling someone something that's like, if we both do the pots, we can have 10 hours off, or we can argue for 9 and kill each other for 1. They're like, I just don't understand. So because I'm still like a child, my brain, I don't know if it's, I'm kind of fucked because I won't back down because I still think if I keep telling them,
it'll
then
root its way in.
Suddenly it'll go in. So it fucking doesn't. So I said to her the other day, right, what are you cooking? And she's like, no, kicked off a little bit. And I was like, all right. I said, tell you what, go and have a minute. When you come back down, we'll cook. So she made a point of, I don't know what it is. She doesn't weigh that much, but she stamped away upstairs to the point where I was like, I might have to go and tell her about that. So I looked at Stacey. She's like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. I was like, cool. Okay, I'll leave it. And so I left it. So she came down and I says, right. And I started to talk and she was just still really aggy. And I was like, fuck it. I said, bro, you just need to smile. Embrace this, because the more you push back, the harder it makes this. So she stormed about it. I said, listen, last chance. If you want me to help you with this, we're going to get on with it and we're going to be good. Or I can just fuck off and you can do it all by yourself. And she decided at this point she was making Raising Cane's chicken, which we do a lot of copycat recipes. Mm-hmm. So if it's TGI Fridays sesame chicken, or if it's, I don't know, sweet and sour or Mongolian steak or KFC. Five Guys burgers, anything. I never like to try and do KFC because it's too familiar. When you've got a chicken from America, which is Raising Cane's or Popeyes or whatever it is, you don't expect it to be KFC. So when it's not KFC, but it tastes kind of cool, it's interesting. If you can compare it to something bite for bite, it's weird. Anyway, she decided, instead of just ticking the box and we're going to make everyone beans on toast and fuck you, Dad, she's making Raising Cane's. So I was like, no problem. So she slowly defrosted and came out and made an incredible meal. I was so proud of her. She made the sauce. She made the chicken. She did the dredge. She did everything. And it was bang on. I was there to help and guide or wash the pots. So I always like to think that whatever we've got each other's back, everything's good and we can have a bit of a laugh with it. So from that frosty, shitty, like, little experience, and then her just naturally being a teenager and obviously just being a bit, like, not wanting to talk to anyone, came to last night, and I went downstairs and she was doing her dinner for the next day. So I our kitchen, you know, is like a U shape, or the island is. So I was getting some of the carrot peelings and stuff that she got out. I think she tried to use 6 knives to be able to cut this thing, and then realised I'll just use a fucking sharp one. So then there was those that I'd put to one side, and then, like, we were just basically just sorting out. And I was about to take the dogs. I said, do me a favour. I've ran you the water. Just run them pots through before you nip up. I'll be back in a sec. And she turned, looked at me and went, they're not all mine. And honestly, if it was a grown man, I would have levelled him. Because I don't want to have to keep reading a list that, I drive you to school and I buy this and I do that and I do that. Because to me, I need you to know, like, other than your pots for your dinner, there was 2 plates and a jug. It's like, let's just be a team. But it genuinely is that teenage thing that it just doesn't register. But as an old twat, it doesn't register to me that they don't get it. So it's this fucking ever-spinning, horrible shitball that I can't rationalise, because I'm the grown-up and I'm meant to be sensible, which...
It's good that you got a mate, though, that can give you a bit of reasoning behind the madness.
I would be fucked without it, honestly.
It sounds... You can reflect back to him and go, oh, yeah, she doesn't know what's actually happening right now.
But it's never in the moment. Even in the moment, if someone whispered that in my ear, I'd be like, no, I'm making a fucking point. And you're going to fucking learn.
No, I'm with you, mate. I work with kids a lot on the bus on Monday nights. I go to schools. And it's great because I can dib in, dib out. But I'm really being a kid there. And I went into one recently, which was all the ready to be expelled or excluded kids.
I love those ones.
And there's about 12 of them. And they were really vibing the activities, going for it. But then one of them just, I think I might have said something triggering or just a moment. I was ready to throw fists.
Yeah.
I would never do it.
No,
please, get me into your schools.
But it naturally, it does trigger you, don't it?
12-year-old, 13-year-old, and where all the teachers are so amazing and can bring that level of rationale to their mindset, I'm flustered and I'm going, you what?
Yeah, exactly.
Just don't know what. And I'm treating him like I would at a primary school myself.
Yeah, if you were a kid.
Little Mikey going back there and thinking, oh, I don't know how to take this moment. I'm going to just start getting angry. And it's very interesting because you don't have that ability to go back and go, I'm approaching a kid right now. Yeah. See, I'm being a kid.
With my own children, and I think this is the thing I have to take away from it, because it's so insane. Because I hated school. I hated every minute of school. I fucking despised it. Because I was small, I was bullied. Divorce wasn't such a popular thing when I was growing up. And my mum and dad got split up. They got divorced when I was 4. So it wasn't like now it's a normal thing. Whereas back in the day, I was some benefit scumbag kid. Do you know what I mean? I was, and
treated in a certain way.
Yeah, and it was difficult because you'd have some people saying, "I'm going to go and see, I'm doing this with my dad tonight," and I didn't see my dad till the weekend or whatever it was, and it wasn't like I grew up in fucking hell, but it was a bit different.
Confusion.
Yeah, so I've always been able to relate to problem children, or I did school tours when I was working before, and I would go around and explain my circumstance because I failed everything. I left school, I think I had 2 C's, and I needed 3 for my I needed 3 to get into my art graphic design course. Went to see the guy. He was a fucking prick. Can't remember his name. And he was
like a Puritan.
He was a complete bellend. But he looked at my work and he sort of looked at me and looked at me and was like, "Have you done this?" I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Okay, yeah, well, there'll be a place for you. You've got to get 3 C's. I didn't get the 3 C's. I got 2. So I ended up on intermediate art and design at Mackworth College in Normanton Road in Derby, which if I hadn't have failed everything, I wouldn't have met Stace, which I've been with Stace since I was 17. I'm 40 now. So it worked out pretty fucking good. But because she kept me out of prison and she kept me alive, a lot of my experience and stories, I can relate to a number of these real problem children or any child. Because when I'm talking to even people in the collective's got kids, their kids, me and him, we get on really well because I'm not there. I'm not fucking forceful and being a bit of a prick. Whereas I have to feel like I've got to make sure that I'm turning out my daughter to be the best version of herself into the real world, and not necessarily by sticking a head in a book or making her revise or doing it. It's just more, you can't be a dick.
Yeah,
you've got to be good. So because of some of the struggles we had growing up, it made me a hustler. It made me like work things out. So if I wanted a Mac when I was a kid, I couldn't go and buy one. I needed to know where I could buy something that someone else needed that I could swap to get to do this. And it was always a trade. But that gave me hustle. So even now, if I can afford to buy a Mac, I'll still hustle because I need to think about my top line all the time. So when I can relate to kids, or I see like, there's a number of kids that I once did a talk and I was explaining about failing everything. And basically I went to Thornton's and then I went to Egg and when I was at college, they renamed maths and English word power and number power. And I passed. But I passed because the teacher was sound as fuck and we could wear what we wanted and we could have a smoke break. I used to smoke roll-ups at college. So I could have a smoke break with the teacher. We'd go back in and go, no. Imagine it like this, mate. And we were both into motorbikes. So he would completely relate to me.
Yeah.
Which I have nothing but respect for that guy because without him, it didn't make any sense. I didn't need to know about Pythagoras' theorem or whatever the fuck it was. I was more, make it relevant to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's more important nowadays than anything because when I was revising, I wasn't allowed to have music on or the TV on or whatever. And if I'd have said to my mum, there's going to be a platform one day called YouTube and I'm going to dominate it and I'm going to make a load of money off it, she'd be like, well, it's not here now, so get down to fucking HL Plastics or whatever it was. So when I see these other people, because of my experiences of being shit and struggling, I can instantly relate to them.
Yeah.
But I think with kids, a number of the time, when I say kids, with kids that aren't mine, it's distraction. It's all about distraction. So even if someone's being a prick, you don't have to highlight the fact they're being a prick. You can distract them by giving them a job or doing something else. And, excuse me. Once you've got that sort of, that connect, and they know that you're not a disciplinarian that's just there to fuck them over.
That's it.
It makes a massive difference. But I think what I struggle with more than anything is that school hasn't changed. It hasn't changed for a million years. That we sit in a classroom and someone talks at you. Go fuck yourself. This needs to be better. It needs to be a lot better.
Retaining information.
Yeah, or life skills or whatever it is. Like
no, meaning that's what it is now. It's just about retention of information. Yeah. Regurgitating that information.
Exactly. But I mean, any exam you've ever sat, if I asked you half a dozen questions out of that, they're not going to be in there.
Yeah.
Same as when I was at Egg, I had a mandate for lending, I think I had a mandate for lending 25 grand, which at the time, I know the guy who gave me the mandate, his name was Richard Proctor, and he was like the head of what we were doing at the time. And there was, say, 15 of us in this room, and there was 3 of us got the highest mandate, and I was one of them. And even he looked at me and was like, how the fuck have you done this? And to be fair, I was really proud of it because it was relevant to my job. Yeah. But if you get me in the exam now, Not a fucking clue. Nothing. And I think that's why things need to be transferable or relevant. And so if you've got life skills or whatever it is, it's equally as important as knowing all your times table or whatever. Because if you realise by being, I don't know, like my dad being a joiner, his numbers are fantastic because of measuring and all the rest of it. But he didn't sit down before he became a joiner to learn numbers or times table or whatever it is or maths. He realised as he was doing it, I need to remember
the importance of it.
This matters for this. And it's really difficult because when you see a lot of people that are struggling, obviously mental health is becoming a massive thing. And I think a big part of it can be school that's not the same as it was before.
And not equipping you for the real life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I saw a good acronym the other day. It was Dave Keelan. He's a teacher that I follow, but he's a comedian as well.
Okay.
And his acronym was school needs to be now, ring, relevant, interesting, naughty, and a giggle. And that feels like that would have really suited us. And from that, Martin Illingworth, who's got a book out called Forget School, but he's got a film out, and it's, again, this kid, and he's not even one of the really naughty ones. He's just the one that sort of, it's a passive experience school for him.
Yeah.
So he just goes through it.
Yeah.
Nothing hits the side. But the pivotal moment, keyword today, of this kid's journey was when all the teachers, well, one teacher saw him in the newspaper and he won a fishing competition. And he picked that up and he was like, this kid loves fish. So all these lessons that he'd just been passive through, he's told the art teacher about it, and she gets him drawing fish and painting up fish, and then the mathematician starts doing equations with fish involved and so on, and they all take his interest, what makes him him, and they turn it into their lessons, the biology of a fish and so on. Yeah, and I thought that was really beautiful.
Amazing.
Just take them and run with it.
And my criticism isn't against teachers. It's not even against school. It's just that no one's willing to stand out on a side and make a difference or change or to have a new school. Because I know a lot of teachers that are doing amazing jobs and remembering their names or their interests or whatever. Because obviously kids have got, not only have they got their struggles at school, they've got the struggles at home, they've got the struggles in their own brain. There's a lot of shit.
Chemical imbalances,
mate,
or just
fucking
chemicals going on. And
so it's not a criticism of teachers as such. I find it difficult that, like, it's almost like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. It fucking is broke.
The system's
it looks like it's not broke because the building still stood.
Yeah.
But fuck me, man. Like, we can make this really good. We can make it really fun. And I think, for me, when it was coming to relate to people, regardless of your confidence or how you feel about anything, I think hands-on with anything, most people, 99% get. It doesn't matter if, I mean, I've worked with different people like on autistic spectrums, on different learning capabilities, and I would take a T-shirt CAD. So it was the front and the back of a T-shirt, and I'd sit down with them and say, right, what are we doing? And there was always one kid. There's always one kid that comes up to you that is the absolute, like, pick of the bunch. He's the one that the teachers love and everything else. And he gets all the attention. You can tell he gets all the attention because he does good. But by not necessarily, like, buying into that completely, by treating everyone together and sort of, like, raising everyone's little profile at the same time, you could tell that it made a bigger difference.
And that kid there, the one that gets all the attention, needs a different learning experience given to them. Yeah. Knowing when to sit back, knowing when to be quiet, knowing when to be an observer. Yeah. That's something you need to work with them on. Yeah. Because all the kids in front of you are still forever needing to grow, needing to learn, needing to adapt. And you've got to constantly be on the, what can I give this kid more of or less of?
Yeah. Or by including them as far as like listen, I've got a job. And I need you to sit with this person or do this, because then
you can be the teacher as well.
Exactly. But it's not necessarily to have a label, but it gives them an accountability that then, because I was, when I was at Thornton's, obviously I'm a fucking mouthy prick and I'm always talking. I get that. But there was a lady that I was at Thornton's with, and if you imagine the belt, it was, I think it was D-belt or something in Thornton's at Belper. So basically, you've got someone at the end putting the formers on to put the chocolates in, and I'm filling up. So I'm just giving them trays of different chocolates. and there's like however many people have chocolates, so they just sat putting them into the trays.
No, that was me.
Yeah, so I was stood behind and I was getting involved. And this was a big thing I used to do. I was getting involved in everyone's shit all the time because I'm stood with, say, 15 people, but I'm the only one this side taking the tray. So if you're having a conversation about FIFA and I'm a bit involved in that, and then I'm like, oh shit, they need me down there. They're talking about, I don't know, fucking painting nails and fairy liquid or whatever. And then someone else is talking about cars. I'm having all these conversations. And this one lady was sat and she was having a conversation with someone. And I was like, what's that? And she went, pardon? I said, no, just wondering what you're saying. She's like, who the fuck are you? And she knocked me down so many pegs in front of so many people.
Ego slap.
That I had nothing to say. Because I was just being involved for the sake of being involved.
Yeah.
But it made me realise, and I was kind of pleased that she did it like years later, because being 16 and being slapped like that, well, you felt like a prick. But without having her do that, then I would probably still be sticking my nose in where I don't need...
no reflectiveness.
Yeah. And it's just, you just always just asking, just fucking getting involved. And sometimes you don't need to get involved. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you don't need to stick your nose in.
Quite a beautiful moment, really.
Mate, massively, because...
Think about how you're conducting yourself around people.
Yeah.
And maybe not being sensitive in the right areas.
Exactly. Well, you imagine that people are going there from 5 till 10:30. And they've not seen any other grown-ups all day. So, like, some people going through divorce, some people are struggling to try and have a child. There was a lot of heavy shit because I can't remember what I read the other day, but it was about you spend more time with work people than your own family. And as much as they don't know where you live, they know exactly about what's happening with, I don't know, getting married or having a baby or doing whatever, or relationship. They know so much bits about you, but... you are friends, but it's not the same as what you class as a friend. Do you know what I mean? Like so, some of them all transfer over, but it's a weird thing. So when someone did that for me, I've mentioned it to a few people because there was a woman that I worked with at Egg did what I was doing, but she was not comfortable in herself at any point. She was not a confident person, but she was constantly just looking for this either validation or whatever it was, and she was just constantly trying to get involved in everything to try and be everyone's hero. And I was like, bro, there's no fucking medals, man. There's no medals. Like, look, be you, but be a real you. Don't do something for someone that you wouldn't do for someone else. Like, there was a guy that worked there, and he was a full-on length. He was an absolute fucking prick. I despised him because this was back in the day when everyone downloaded stuff. You remember when you downloaded films, TV shows, all the rest of it? It's not some
LimeWire.
Yeah, LimeWire, BitTorrent, fucking Pirate Bay, all the rest of it. So we all did that. Everyone did it. And yeah, it was just one of them things. I mean, there's enough Netflix and Disney Plus and Amazon, all the rest of it now. You don't really need to do it.
No.
But there was a guy, and I'm not going to say his name because that's a bit shitty, but he's a fucking prick. And there was a girl that we worked with called Rachel, and she was downloading stuff. But she knew that I downloaded, because majority of stuff I would download was fighting. So most people at Egg knew that I had fights. So on a Monday, I had the access to my USB ports on my PC unlocked for an official work-related element, which basically, if you had a stick, I could put it in, drag UFC 30 across, Mikey's done, Dave's done, Steve's done, John's done, Gabby's done, whoever it was. Everyone would come to me, give me their sticks, I'd sort them out, and off they go.
Yeah.
So she was asking me some questions about some random shit to download film-wise. And I wasn't judging her, but I was like, that doesn't sound like something you'd be into. And she was like, oh, no, it's not for me. And I was like, who's it for? And we'll just call him Captain fucking Dickhead. So she said, oh, no, it's for Captain Dickhead.
Yeah.
And she basically said, because she'd started doing a bit of project work with him. So he was her boss and was like, oh, get me this, get me that. So I don't give a fuck who I'm talking to, and especially if you're being a prick, I'm going to call you out on it in front, and I will embarrass you to the point where you're not going to do this to this person anymore. So he came over, and I said, yo, what's the deal with, why's she downloading that? Oh, I can't do it, can I? I went, sorry, do it again? He said, well, I'm not doing that. I said, you're willing to watch it, take it, and use it, but you're not going to do it. No, it's illegal. I said, are you fucking mad? And I caused the biggest scene. And you know when someone's looking around?
Yeah.
I was like, no. I said, and bear in mind, she's gone across there. She's trying to better her career. She's trying to be a better person and try and achieve and do all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And he's basically mugging her off by using her as a mule.
And she wouldn't say boo to a goose.
She's not going to say no because...
Oh, mate.
And I was more angry.
That's called a manipulator there.
Called a fucking arsehole.
Yeah,
That's what it's called.
okay.
So I basically...
French words for that, isn't there?
Yeah. So I just said to him, I was like, how dare you? And bear in mind, if he's on the ladder there, I'm there. So I'm not above him.
Yeah.
But I'll fucking fight him.
Yeah.
So I was like, I says, no. I says, why are you getting her to do this for you if you're not willing to do it? Oh, I can't. It's illegal. I said, well, she ain't going to fucking do it for you no more. And he's like, what? You can't choose that. I said, yes, I can. Because she's not going to do it. Because a lot of the stuff that I was getting, I was telling her I was getting it from. Or I was helping her out. And I didn't realise that I was helping Captain Dipshit. So it's more that, you know, when people are doing stuff for other people that they're not necessarily comfortable with, but it's to change or to make them grow. It just it's kind of heartbreaking
Using
to think.
people.
Yeah, and I don't like seeing it.
Yeah.
I don't like seeing people being taken advantage of because I think everyone's got their own little. Well, like we've all got stats, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we've put all of our stats on the same thing. So like we've all got different bits that we can help each other out with. So I've not put all my stats on video editing, but I know if I needed help, you could help me.
100%.
Same as if you needed like knowledge of how to make the best chips in the world.
I'm ready for that.
For whatever reason,
I'm ready for
I can
that.
help you out with that. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily mean it's all academic, but you've all got worth. Everyone's got worth. And I think it's unfortunate that there's a lot of occasions where people's worth isn't necessarily reflected because it's outshone. I mean, there was a quote, someone said, by blowing someone else's candle out, it won't make yours burn brighter.
Stunning.
And for me, that was fucking massive because it doesn't matter that you've made this person this much money or you've done this or you've done that. You've represented them professionally in every way you can. Like by me shitting on that, it doesn't make mine look better. It just makes me look like a bit of a...
It's like that poison quote, isn't it? Being angry at somebody's like drinking poison and expecting them to die.
Yeah.
But it goes, you've got the one where you're trying to blow out somebody's fire and it's not going to feed your own. And then the other thing of thinking about somebody else all the time is only going to feed fuel to you and make you ill.
Yeah.
So, if you've got them two together, you fuse them, have a baby, you're going to have a good life.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely stunning.
I mean, I think...
Do you think that fella, Captain Knobhead, how that woman treated you at Thornton's give you a very reflective moment? Did you ever see him again? Do you think that happened to him and his existence and he realised he was using people and being a tit? Or do you think it was just over his head and he thought, oh, he's a dick and you're Captain Knobhead in his story now somewhere?
Yeah, maybe. I would like to think that he tells that story and he fucking hates me for it. The thing is...
I'm just wondering if he learnt from it.
He was kind of an entitled prick. I mean, I heard there was a few things that happened to him in his life that I wouldn't wish on anyone.
I get you.
And I'm not saying that it was karma, but I didn't feel bad. I just thought... It's one of them things...
You didn't have that knowledge of when you were doing it in that moment either.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to make him feel shit because a circumstance arose after the fact. But when someone told me about the circumstance, I was like, oh my God, I hope he's okay. I was like, fuck him. Do you know what I mean? And I think sometimes you have to disconnect with people. There are people that will suck all the fucking jam out of your donut. and they won't even like buy you a drink first. It's just, they're just a piece of shit. And sometimes, unfortunately, you can't fix everyone.
No.
But the faster that someone gives you, or the faster that someone highlights to you that they're a prick or they're not good, is way better. Like, I know I keep going to quotes and different stuff, but you know the film, is it Once Upon a Time in America? Once Upon a Time in New York? The De Niro film.
America, I think.
It's about 4 hours long. It's fucking brilliant. So, at one point, the main cast, they're kids. They're about 12. And they're stood with one of the mafia dons. And they see another kid run across the back of the shop. And they're like, oh, let's go and get him. Let's go and fuck him up. And he's like, whoa. Why are you going after him? He's like, oh, he owes me $1. And they're like, what? Oh, yeah. He owes fucking Sweet Cheeks or fucking Fat Steve $1 or whatever it is. And he's like, all right. How long has he owed you this? He's like, well, he borrowed it last week. Okay. How many more dollars has he asked for? And he's like, oh, well, none. He goes, okay. How often does he borrow money off you? He's like, every week. How hard is it to get back? And he's like, it's a fucking nightmare. He's like, okay. So think of it this way. It's cost you $1 to keep that prick out of your life.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay. And for me, that's massive. So massive. Because when I was at other jobs and I was working and I was fixing people's computers, like a twat, I used to test people to see how invested in me they were. So I would sit up all night and I'd fix your computer and they'd say, oh, what do I owe you? Some people wouldn't, so they wouldn't get it fixed again. So that's the test. You failed the test because you just took it on, or you wouldn't even fucking discuss it or say thanks. Do you know what I mean? Someone just a scumbag. But some people, they go, what do I owe you? I said, just get me a drink. So for me, there's levels of drink. So you can either go in and get 4 cans of Carlin, which is really shit, or you could get me, I don't know, a box of Prony or a bottle of Morgan, depending on how you know me. So it was a bit of a sociopath thing to do, but I didn't feel comfortable charging people because I knew they were struggling as much as I was struggling. Otherwise, they'd be going to PC World. But I had the knowledge and the skill that they didn't have to be able to fix their stuff. So it kind of, the Once Upon a Time in New York thing, it just fine-tuned my group of people that I was willing to help and work with, rather than me chasing every single person. And
you get to be selective.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult because you hear people like Rogan and all the rest of them going, like, just keep going.
You're not allowed to say that name anymore.
No, mate, he's being witch hunted at the minute, hasn't he?
That's affected my mental health, that has.
What, the Joe Rogan thing?
Well, I listen to him a lot.
Yeah.
That's sort of my solace in the day. I live self-employed. Majority of my day is spent on my own.
Yeah.
So that's why I keep these to quite long length podcasts, because I create what I'd like to listen to. And if it's 2-3 hours, you can get a real understanding of somebody. You have a bit more of a beautiful exploration with the conversation. I just enjoy long format rather than just fast, snippy clips, which a lot of people seem to enjoy more nowadays.
Yeah, and you said exploration of conversation, which that should be on a t-shirt.
Oh, mate, don't worry, that's gone in there.
That's already in.
Right in the noggin. I just really enjoy that long format thing, because there's so many times where you can tune in, tune out, but you feel like you've got a friend there for the day.
It's a million conversations.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
and that's genuinely how I feel. I'll put one of them on. Sometimes it goes for 2 in the day.
Yeah.
I've got all my bits and bobs done, and I've heard a bit of alien talk, heard a bit about... The other day, a woman was talking about testosterone, and that was really interesting. So there's some science there. It's just this massive eclectic mix of...
But you learn so much nonsense you would never normally learn.
And he says a lot of things I don't even agree with sometimes, which is fine.
But that's a conversation, right?
I've got mates that I don't agree with on so many levels. And that's the beauty of being human. You get to change your parameters, and you can change your mind about things, or you can have a belief that you really like the look of and keep to it and work with it. So, the fact he's being witch hunted so much is getting to me, because I'm like, you don't, but it's often by the people that haven't listened to one single minute of what he says. But then they're judging you.
Yes.
As somebody who listens to it.
Oh, you're that scumbag.
As I've probably listened to over 500 episodes. Yeah. Genuinely.
Yeah.
And I've listened to all the nuance and discoveries he's made as a human on the way. So I know I feel like I know who he is. He can't hide behind 2,000 episodes for such a long time and be a complete cockhead.
No.
You can't.
No.
He's a real person that's forever evolving.
Yeah.
So, you get people now messaging, oh, you're just a white, cis, Rogan, okay, that's it then. That's well, where we're at.
You must know me really well. And that is, again, it's the double-edged sword of social. Because the problem is, there's always been maniacs. There's always been fucking maniacs. The whole flat earth thing back in the day started in a pub in probably 1912 when some old boy was at the end of a bar and went, the earth is flat. And they'd be like, don't listen to Dave, he's a fucking idiot. That's as far as it went. Now, there's some people that believe it. Some people that don't. Unfortunately, there's a platform, or fortunately, for whichever way you want to look at it, there's a platform to project whatever belief. Now, the problem is with that, with any belief, same as religion and anything, you've got people that feel so strongly about it. And I'm all for that. That's amazing. You've got purpose in your life, and that is really important to you. It's not important to me. So it's almost like that toxicity of an ex-smoker. You know when you got an ex-smoker that just won't fucking leave you alone, and you don't want to hear it because you know it's true, or you know what they're saying, you probably shouldn't be doing it. You don't want to hear it, but it happens. Ultimately, it's one of those things that people feel they always need a soapbox to fucking go off at. And I think what I struggle with, especially when it comes down to Joe, is the fact that it is just a conversation. It is just an opinion. So to break this down really, really small, I've got 3 brothers. I've got 3 brothers and a sister. My 2 youngest brothers have recently had babies. Probably, I think they're 3 months apart. So my brother Rich lives in Chicago with his wife, and my brother Danny lives up the road with his wife. They both had boys. The way that they deal with them, as in feeding, nappies, fucking you name it, completely different. Both the lads, Danny and Rich, my 2 brothers, came from the same mum. They had the same upbringing. They did everything. As a brother, they still get on. We're still a very close family. The way they raise their own children, neither one of them is wrong or right, but it's very different. And sitting at Christmas, you've got my brother Rich, who's got an app to tell him how much they've fed him at what point and what's this and what's that, which is, for me, that we didn't have that when we were bringing our kids up. So it's weird to see. Whereas Danny has got something slightly different, and they're doing it differently. Whereas they've both got very different little bits. Now, they could stand and argue over which is best for years. Ultimately, it doesn't fucking matter. It just doesn't matter. So when it comes to Joe, because you've got so many people that can be on a platform and they can say this and they can say that, and you can rake stuff up. Like, there's a lot of stuff. Yeah, there is bad stuff. We've all done bad stuff. But even when he's used the N-word in the past, the fact that he's used that is awful. And even though he tried to contextualize it in himself, in the time when he was doing that, it was slightly different to now, because the focus has been massively shifted.
You can't base now times on then times.
No, exactly. It's like pulling a statue down.
Yeah.
Like, hold on a minute. Like, we can't change history. We can learn from it, and we can make sure it doesn't happen again. But
just erasing it.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, there's still kids working in sweatshops. So we've got all this energy. We've got all this energy to fucking protest someone taking a statue down. But you're quite happy doing that protest in a T-shirt that was made by a child in a sweatshop. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the times, because people can just stand on a soapbox and scream and shout, there's a lot of opinions we need to hear.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things we need to understand, because a lot of things, especially like politics and all the rest of it, there's curtains, and we don't get to see behind the curtain. So when it comes to the Boris party thing, whichever genius took pictures and fucking shopped him, fair play. But it just shows you how fucked up everything is, because there's been no police involvement. There's been no real like wrist slapping. I mean, there was people that were having parties stupidly during lockdown that then got fined, I don't know, 10 grand, 15 grand. They're not people that can afford that, but it's too hard to cover up. You can't hide that you had a party because of social, because everyone's taking pictures, everyone's done videos. But then it's happened to the biggest, as in Boris.
Yeah.
So it's important to have and to be able to see behind the curtain. But sometimes I think the common sense element of stuff has just fallen out of everyone's arse. I saw someone having a conversation the other day saying a man could be pregnant.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
This is sort of what the PC culture has done.
Yeah, and
Politically correct.
like,
It's gone wild.
if I break it down in my opinion, it's only my opinion. If you were going to a human spare parts factory, right? There's 2 options. There's a man and there's a woman. So, like, if you need to get a bit replaced for a bloke, it's slightly different because it's a dick. And the thing is, it's really difficult because I know people that are trans. I know people that are going through transitions.
Yeah.
I know people that have been born essentially in the wrong body, and it's kind of devastating.
And masculine women and
Yeah.
feminine men.
Yeah, because
there's anomalies and
and it's not
different
fair.
degrees. Yeah,
It's not fair because I think we are. Is it 4 trillion to 1? The chances of us being born, the chance of the sperm hitting the egg is 4 trillion to 1. What the fuck? So you imagine getting there, and I've been very fortunate that I've been comfortable in my own body. Yeah. Imagine not being. I mean, that's fucking horrible. So the fact that there's been a platform that people can say, oh, well, you can do this now, and you can relate as this now, and that's fine. Like you can relate as a fucking stapler if you want. That's fucking no problem. But if you get into a car accident and you need a blood transfusion, we're not going to be filling you with like a Rexall refill. You're going to be getting blood because that's what you fucking need. So I think a lot of the people
can't just defy science.
No.
Completely throw evolutionary biology out the window.
Yeah. And I think it's sad. It's unfortunate because it must be horrible to be in that position that someone feels that they're not in the right, that they're not them. And so I think it's amazing that there's these operations and these things that can change people and can make people so much more comfortable and feel better within themselves. But I don't think a man can get pregnant.
And it also comes down to how when you start to conduct a society and a community, it's arbitrary rules that we've made up, and it's becoming quite confusing now because Joe picks one like with sport. It is very irritating when you've been a fan like you have of, say, MMA, UFC for all your life or as long as the sport's been going, and you see somebody that comes in, identifies, and it's always of a woman, and then batters everybody in there and didn't even say that she'd had a transition or anything.
That's not fair.
It's you're going against that then, and then you look in the prison system, and you see people that are identifying, going in and doing devastating things in women's institutes and so on. You go, right, if that happened to my daughter and she'd committed a petty crime, ended up there and then was in a room with. Do you know what I mean? We need to start or stop just following, trying to please everybody and sound nice and be nice. We need to be realistic.
Common sense.
Build common sense. Yeah. Coming back round to it.
The common sense side of things for me is massive because like you've just hit on, I've got 2 daughters. If either of them decided that they were gay, trans, whatever they wanted to transition, that's fine. It's no problem. I've got you back 1,000,000%, no matter what. Mm-hmm. But if they have trained, let's say they've trained as a hurdle jumper for their entire life as a lady and then transitioned to being a man, it's almost like, and then eventually it will happen, whereas there'll be a trans league, which in MMA, that would be fucking brilliant. Because if you've got a load of men that transition into ladies or ladies into men, then there's a fucking league that you can build off that. But it's almost like the craziness of the old man and his grandson fighting a woman. It's not a legitimate thing. It's a strange thing that someone's put together for clicks. And unfortunately, they're not considering what's happening to that person because they become I'm not going to say freak show within that context, but you know what I mean. It becomes that horrible side kind of thing.
And we've got to an area now where people are trying to pick flaw with. In particularly, Joe Rogan's brought it up in a lot of his podcasts. But again, he's had people on who feel the opposite way of what we're discussing to discuss it and have a conversation around it. And same with, I'll say the V word, vaccines. He had Dr. Sanjay Gupta on, who's the CNN reporter, but no, he's not even a reporter. He finds all the information. He's a doctor and gives it to CNN. He had him on to have a 3-hour chat, and then he had this Malone fella on. Completely polar opposites in their thinking and beliefs, but what an amazing platform where this happens, where you're looking at mainstream media, you're only ever seeing what they want you to see, and it's all of the same belief system, all saying and spouting the same things. Why don't you want to wake up each morning and hear a different perspective, hear a different voice of somebody who's in the medical trade still, was a doctor for 30, 40 years and just listen to what they've got to say. And then you can start really building up an understanding of how you want to step yourself and position yourself. That's the only way. And I think, again, I love this quote. I'd heard it on a Joe. It was the only thing that combats bad speech is better speech.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Instead of just cutting it off, eradicating it, get rid of it, have more people on that are doing a better job at articulating it and explaining, this is why you need to do this.
Yeah. Because, you remember when you had the TB jab at school? It was kind of a rite of passage.
I didn't actually. I was one
of the ones that you didn't have to have it.
The first year that we didn't have to have it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we had it where basically they were like six or 12 needles in your arm.
If you get a reaction.
If it stays, then you need the jab. If it disappears, you don't have to have the jab.
You're right.
But an injection in a group colony like a school, even though I'm not scared of needles, naturally, because all these other people are, you start to become a bit like, well, maybe I should be
Why
nervous.
are they so bothered?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's that herd mentality sometimes that it will give something momentum. Like Crazy Dave in the pub in 1912 who said the earth is flat. There's no momentum to that because there's no platform, there's no one to talk to. Whereas now, it's like almost everything is almost being questioned. And for me, I think sometimes you have to break it back down to what I would consider common sense. You're like, listen, why would we want to turn you into a fish? I don't want to do that. But I'm still also not adverse to someone saying to me, listen, you said the other day you don't think a man can be pregnant. What about this scenario? I am more than willing to listen. More than willing. And I'm not going to turn around and I'm not going to be abusive. I'm not going to be horrible and I'm not going to be an arsehole because guess what? Opinions are like arseholes.
Yeah.
Everyone's got one. And some are full of shit.
Yeah.
It's just that thing because, look, because of the way that I've been brought up and what I've seen and what I've experienced, this is what I think. It doesn't necessarily mean it's right or wrong, but I think it's frustrating just because I see things as energy. And a lot of the things, there are legit things that there are problems with the world and other stuff that we could be putting all of this energy into.
Actual wars going off at the moment.
Actual shit, yeah. Like, mate, I adore dogs. I think they're the greatest thing in the world. They are by far the best gift we have ever received as a race. They're incredible. And even if you look at dogs that aren't having the best life or in shelters or whatever, that's just a starting point. We've not even got to children or family or pensioners or like, there was an article that a lady was found in Italy, sat at her dining table and she'd been dead, I think for 2 years. I mean, that she shouldn't be left on her, like, and as a society to look out for other people and just be better. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the whole thing I was going to say with the Robin Williams, I listened to that quote. Regardless of, no matter what, you don't know what people are going through, always be kind.
Nice. Yeah.
I believe it, but then I'm driving home. I can drive home from here and someone will pull out wrong or not turn fast enough and I turn into an arsehole.
Well, that does seem where everyone's energy is at now. It's ripping down. The energy isn't of accepting and letting it work its way out and being nuanced. It's at every moment, how can we find anger? How can we find these moments where I can rip them down or take that away from them, gain power for myself? But it's all of this really negative nature.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's dangerous.
But by ripping them down, it comes back to the whole candle analogy or the poison analogy. Like, every time you knock someone down, unfortunately, there is some small validation. Because even though blowing someone's candle out doesn't like yours, in the normal world, on social, if you show someone up, then you might get a bit of validation. And the problem is that toxic validation. Like, did you see there was a video the other day of a woman sat in a car and filming her and her son, and their puppy had died, but they were like they're either a YouTube family or like quite a highly streamed family, whatever it is. And this puppy had died, and she was going, do this face. No, more like this, like look like you're crying. And he said, Mom, I am crying. And she's like, no, but more like, come on, like nestle into here. And he's like, Mom, I'm crying. And the whole video is her training him or coaching him how to put this really heartfelt, devastated video out to their channel so they get more views. And she's had to delete all her accounts. She's had to do so. And the problem is, that's a grown woman making them. They're basically not having to traditionally work for a living, because guess what? YouTube's here. It's a thing. People are making money off it. As much as you're not a plumber or a welder or working in a factory or a doctor or a nurse or whatever, you're still entertaining. You're still making a living. So we've got to get past that. But even though you get past that, you're also not only doing that. You're trying to milk it for something even more by being super fake. And the problem is, I just don't think you're ever going to please everyone at the same time.
No.
And because everyone's got such strong opinions, no one's willing to keep theirs to themselves, because everyone wants to make theirs better or make their self heard. So that's why I kind of sit back a lot, and like I keep myself to myself in my personal life. Like, obviously me and Dan will have a chat and we'll talk and we'll tell stories and stuff, but it never really comes down to religion or sexual orientation or like flat earth or any of this stuff, because the problem is, regardless of if whoever I speak to about it, I'm not going to agree with everyone. I'm more than happy to take information on board and learn and listen and try and understand what people are saying, but it's very difficult when someone is adamant. It's like they're almost selling you a timeshare to go, no, sign up. Do you agree? And it's like, no, mate. I don't think any less of you for thinking that. I'm surprised that's your opinion, but I don't think any less of you. But it's not what I think. Because it's like, I think it was Ricky Gervais or Stephen Fry that was talking to someone about being an atheist. And one of the things they said was, you're an atheist, right? And he's like, yeah, here we go again. And they go, yeah, well, and they were a devout Christian. And he goes, oh, you're an atheist. And he goes, yeah, well, how many gods are there? And he went, oh, well, apparently there's hundreds. And he went, yeah. And he goes, I believe in one less than you. And this guy, he kind of didn't have anything to say. And then the Stephen Fry thing is when they're talking about, he was talking about religion. And he said, why'd you give kids cancer? And a friend of mine's son had recently been diagnosed. He's actually made a massive recovery, and he's had 4 years of chemo, and he's come out the other side, and he's a fucking rock star. And it's amazing, because the thing is, whereas I see religion very positive for some people, like even if we use the example of Shawn Michaels, a wrestler, he was an alcoholic, drug addict from the pain and all the rest of it, and it was God and Jesus. And for me, it's a focus. It's a focus that he has to have. It could be Teletubbies. Yeah. It could be PlayStation. It could be fucking anything. But at the minute, it's labelled as a religion that's God. And that's where Shawn Michaels grabbed onto, changed his life around. Not only did it change his life around, it gave him a little bit of focus and a little bit of direction to say, probably don't do that anymore. Probably, and he had a list of rules that he had to follow. So it really helped him. But that was could be written down as a religion, as that's what he got. So I think that really worked for you. That's really good. I'm fortunate that I'm not in my life where I'm spiraling out of control, working 320 days a year, throwing myself off a cage or a ring. So
lots of bangs on the head.
Yeah, whatever it takes. But when you look at like that sort of thing, the other side of it, it's so difficult to try and get on board, because it was never forced into me as a child.
The Stephen Fry bit's beautiful. He was asked, wasn't he? I think it was, why don't you believe in God? Or what would you say to God if you met him?
Yeah.
And he, how dare you?
Yes.
Man, it gives me shivers.
Yeah, because it's so true.
Yeah,
it's so true.
Yeah.
Because for everyone that believes it and can justify, but there's badness in the devil, and then this, like I drove through Dunblane.
Where's that?
In Scotland. So
Okay.
there's a Dunblane. I was in my art class in 1995, 96. And literally, it was the only class in school that we had the radio on. And it was a live news report of a fella in a small town. So in Scotland, I think it's Stirling, which is where I went to because I was doing an advert for Prudential. Went to Prudential Bank at Stirling. And then we went to Dunblane, where it was the countryside to do this bike advert. It's fucking stupid, but we did it. And we drove through Dunblane, and that's where a massacre had happened. A bloke in Dunblane I think he was an old scoutmaster. Don't quote me on it. You'll be able to look into it. It's fucking heartbreaking. But he basically took a gun into a school gymnasium and shot. I think there were 6 or 7 year olds, maybe younger, and a teacher or something else, and just fucking went and honestly, and then turned the gun on himself.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily a spiritual person. I believe in something. I believe there's something. I don't know what though, and I'm not convinced. I'm not 100% sure.
Have you had a psychedelic experience or anything?
Yes, partly, and I've obviously got very stoned in the past.
Okay,
and
I've took you to a realm.
Yeah, I've had readings done and stuff. And the problem is with cold readings and stuff like that, it's something that you can pull out. But I
don't like a spiritual experience to come from somebody else.
No,
but to come from my own experience.
I mean, there's something about a gut feeling.
Yeah.
It's fucking insane, and I'll never forget my mum saying, my mum's a really spiritual person. She said, if you ever get that gut feeling, don't get on the plane, or you listen to that.
Yeah.
And she was, she used to see a lady, and she had like a purple aura that was a natural healer, which I know sounds a bit EBGB, but it's one of those things, and everyone's entitled to believe whatever. And when we drove through Dunblane, it was really chilling, and it was a natural, normal day. Everyone was going about their business. And I didn't know it was Dunblane until afterwards. So when we went there, we basically drove up into the hills, and we were riding a push bike, and it was when I think Egg had been rebought by Prudential, and one of us had a green bike helmet on to represent Egg, one of us had a fucking red helmet on to represent Prudential. And we're riding along, me and this, I can't remember her name, Mona, I think, lovely lady, but we're like, hi, we're such and such, you can invest money with us. It was fucking shit. But while we were there, we did the whole thing, and then came out. I was like, "This place feels a bit weird." And she just sort of went really quiet and came over, because I was in amongst some of the locals and stuff. She called me over and said, "We're in Dunblane, you know." I was like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, this is like just there's such and such." And I was like, and I just got this whole thing, and I was like, "Oh, okay." And because of being, say, 15 and coming of age, and you notice a lot more things about news. And being a part of, like, when someone will say, you know where you were for 9/11 and you know where you were for this and that, that was my first experience of that with Dunblane, because I was really chilling at the time to be sat in art class, which is probably the more relaxed of the academic lessons that I was doing, to sit through a whole news bulletin and, like, not having Google to look into to see what's happening now. We just had 40 minutes of that lesson at the end of the lesson to hear everything that was going on, to then not hear anything. And so for the rest of the day, I'm just sat with my own thoughts thinking, fucking hell. And if I was 15, my youngest brother is 10 years younger than me, so he was 5, the age of the children at this thing. And I was anxious and nervous, and I sort of couldn't settle. And it was a really weird thing, because it was feelings that I'd never had before, and I didn't kind of know what to do with. And I didn't necessarily have a religion to turn to or anyone to turn to. And I think a lot of people find solace in that. And that's where they get their connection with religion or something, because it just centers them. And I don't necessarily think it needs to be about a God per se, but it can be about something where they can have a direct focus to just calm them down. And that's the closest thing I've had to something that was really spiritual when I was in Scotland. It was really eerie.
I quite like Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
And his belief, he's religious.
Okay.
But he goes through religion, and he's chose religion. I think he's Christian. I can imagine so.
Okay.
But he just goes through the Bible and says, I take out what can work for me in my life.
Yeah.
What I can implement, the metaphors that make sense to me,
Yeah.
I will run with. The ones that don't, I don't take literal, and I don't try and implement them because they don't make any sense to me. And I think that's really beautiful, being able to sort of dissect it and pick out the bits that work for you and is going to actually be beneficial to your life.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And for me, I'd say a lot of people hate this when they go, oh, I'm not religious, but I am spiritual.
Yeah.
But there's some things I've experienced on certain substances or certain times where I've gone, that is inexplainable. You can't explain just what happened then. And there's a lot of arbitrary language that we can't put to certain experiences.
Yeah.
And I think that's what religion is. It's them things that we can't explain.
Yeah.
we try and just label and goes this and take it very literal. But
religion doesn't own spirituality, does it?
yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you could see a ghost, but you're not a Christian. If you feel that you've seen a ghost or whatever experience you've had. And I think that's where it's important that I was once going to start a religion, and it was called Just Don't Be a Cunt.
Yeah, I would have signed up.
Literally, that was it. Because it was the elder of the company I worked for before. So the big boss, his name was Ross, and he was an absolute OG, lovely bloke. Grew up in India, struggled like wano, came over here, really worked his arse off and really achieved a load of stuff. Like, I drove him to Newcastle once, and he was by far the nicest, one of the nicest people I've spoke to. And just had a lot of stories that we could relate to. So I grew up working in Thornton's. He grew up in a factory, but it was a bit different, and all the rest of it. We both had struggles, and obviously he's made it big. But he was religious, and he literally stopped and he said to me, he says, "I'm not going to tell you about that. That's nothing. That's nothing you need to worry about unless you want to know."
Yeah.
He says, "Well, one thing I'd say to you: don't be a cunt."
Yeah.
And I was like,
So that's the golden rule.
"Yeah."
So that's how I
And I
got
was
it.
like, "Okay."
Yeah.
He's like, "So, regardless,
Yeah.
always breathe, always take your time."
Yeah.
Always try and I think this is it sometimes, because the amount of times I picked my youngest up yesterday, and she wouldn't talk to me, and I was like, I almost took offence, like some arsehole, some real pernickety prick, and so I picked her up, and bear in mind, I've seen her, I'm like, "What are you saying, mate? Everything goes, yep." And I'm, "Okay, can I have you back?" "Yep." And just really down. But instead of me thinking, "Oh, what's wrong?" I was like, "Oh my God, why are you being funny with me?" Because I am like a child. So when I got in, I didn't react, obviously. I just got in the car, made sure she was okay, jumped home, gets back, said, "Stace, just have a word." Because she'd come downstairs as we got in, and Libs ran upstairs. I was like, "Just have a word with her." Literally went and made a coffee for Stace, made a drink for Bing, ran up to her, went in and just floods of tears. And it was a whole thing about dodgeball.
Okay.
It was about she'd stayed late to do dodgeball. She wanted to get into the competition. She hadn't got in. And it was one of them that I almost had to pat myself on the back because I didn't react. Because my natural thing is almost like I'm 10 and it's like, "Why aren't you talking to me? I thought we were friends." And almost taking offence, when really she's got her own little emotion.
Yeah.
She's got her own little feelings.
Story built up.
Yeah, but they're not little. It's just because she's a little person. They're massive feelings.
For her,
they're
that's
massive
the biggest,
emotions.
If
Yeah.
it's an ice cream that's been dropped on the
Yeah.
floor, that kid,
It's the fucking
their
world.
universe.
Yeah. And I'm slowly trying to take myself out of myself and just stand to view what I'm doing, because if I'm falling out with Moo because she's 13 and going through a load of shit and struggling herself, and it's not her fault, literally none of it. It's all so natural and normal. It's just really, really difficult to deal with when you care so hard, because I think what I benefit from is when I'll see someone on Facebook go, "Does anyone want to swap a teenager for a fucking dog?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, you get it." And it's not like I need to know the story. I don't need to know.
Connection moment.
Exactly. And that's it. I mean, we've got a lot of those where we know being at school is very difficult for someone like myself and yourself, because it wasn't tailored for us.
Yeah.
Even getting into work, it's not what you expect. Like when you go to schools and you can be slightly nervous because you're covered in tattoos and you're a bit of a goofball. Same
bruiser.
Exactly. And it's this, when I used to do these school tours, they'd sort of look at you a bit and they go, "Oh, are you all right?" And I've already probably sworn 15 times.
I turned up in shorts once to a head teachers conference, and it's in the lakes, and we're literally on the lakes is where the hotel is.
Even better.
5-star. I had a chaise lounge, literally put me up for the night. I go out, and the guy that's organised it all is panicking because he doesn't think the speaker's there at all. He's like, "Where are the speakers? Where are the speakers?" And then I saw him in panic, and I said, "Oh, I'm your speaker." And he literally
shit himself.
Just looked up and down and went, "Oh God."
Have you got any slacks?
But then it had a great encounter out of it. We had a fantastic conference, and it was. Yeah, he judged the book by its cover, and it wasn't what he was expecting. But
That's the best.
I love them
That's
moments.
the fucking best.
It's great. It's like, "Oh, this guy."
Yeah. I like
My man.
I like breaking the mold.
Yeah.
I like making people realise you don't have to have everything to make this, or you don't have to wear this to do that. I mean, I know naturally it's been pushed towards suits and ties and all the rest of it, but look at working from home. The amount of places that have realised that, like, a lot of my friends that are, one of them works in HR, one of them is a IT analyst. Their offices have shut down because they went, hold on a minute, how much fucking money are we spending on this building? And not only are we spending on this, we're paying you to come to do all this. And so they're like, well, you'll work from home. So there was something I saw the other day where it's like, come to work dressed as you working from home. And everyone's wearing like a suit jacket, a tie and a shirt, but then they've got like jogging bottoms and slippers on. And I think you've got to be able to laugh at yourself. That was one of the beautiful things of Egg. And I've got good memories, I've got bad memories of being there. The people that set it up realised that the things were changing. So it was okay to wear business casual. Do you know what I mean? So like, when I first started there, you could walk around in flip-flops and shorts. And you could have been the gaffer. It didn't fucking matter. But when Citibank bought it, I'll never forget, one woman came across and she was fuming. Came back to the desk and she was like, oh my God, this place is ridiculous. And I was like, all right, what's wrong with you? She's like, I've just seen someone and it says Alcatraz inmate on his T-shirt. And I was like, oh, you mean John? She was like, oh, do you know him? And I was like, yeah, he's the fucking brand leader of such and such. And she was like, oh, well, I think that's just absolutely outrageous. And I was like, why have you got such a bee up your arse? You're trapped in a tin. So we were
talking about this earlier.
Yeah. You know where Egg is?
Yeah.
It's an aircraft hangar. There's no windows. No one can see fuck all. John's as comfortable as you like in his T-shirt, getting on with work. Everyone thinks John's sound as fuck. Everyone's happy. And she's just decided to go, oh, offence. Yes, please.
You were talking about energy earlier.
Yeah. What the fuck are you wasting that for, my bro?
Looking it out for it.
Yeah. Maybe brush your teeth once in a while. Use some of the energy. Do you know what I mean? Like, just have a word with yourself. And I think, for me, you do, as you get older, you just start looking back and you see so much bits where you just wasted so much time and energy. Whereas it kind of drives you, like the amount of memes that I see now to say, if I get 5 minutes to myself, all I want to do is sleep,
mate.
Or just sit.
Yeah,
and I'm happy with that. I don't aspire to travel anywhere, to go anywhere, to do anything. I just want to stop for a minute because I'm knackered.
I've got to say, man, this is what we were talking about podcasts and what I like from podcasts. This is what I've always wanted my podcast platform to be, because we have gone from all over the place today, and it's been absolutely stunning. It's what I knew was going to happen.
Do I need to make some apologies for I've not said anything out loud?
I just got monetized 2 weeks ago.
Oh, really?
I don't know if you saw that. So my monetized badge came through.
You need to take this one off.
It's all gone. It's all gone.
If it's just going to go beep,
mate,
beep, beep.
Honestly, I don't care about being monetized. I'm fine in my life as long as they're eating. But genuinely, I've loved this. I've got another podcast now.
Oh, really?
Somebody's on their way. They're going to be here in 15 minutes.
No worries. Well, you can kick me out.
Podcast on the way, and then I'm going to Leeds tonight. So
nice.
I'm the man at being structured and giving myself too much to do.
I definitely wouldn't have been able to plan that. They'd have been walking in. We were going, all right, we'll just scotch up.
Doubling it up. But I think you're brilliant. I'm so glad you've got a space to talk your truths and just be a daft git. I love podcasts, man. They're brilliant.
It's the best way, innit? Because it's just cod shit.
I hope there's a platform or somewhere out there that eventually happens where it's just the Wild West and anything can be said forevermore, because this is beautiful. And if you listen to all of that and you're offended by X, Y, or Z or what, it doesn't matter.
You just send us a message. Just put it in. The amount of people I speak to, genuinely, I record a podcast every other week with Dan, and someone will say something, and they go, "What about this?" Yeah. And I'll talk to him.
You're allowed to be offended.
Yeah, because it means you care. And if you're offended, and you can change my opinion, or you can educate me.
Yeah.
Fucking go for it, man. I've got no problem. I'm not here to fall out with anyone. Mate. I'm just trying to let you know what I know.
Well, for the people that stuck in for this part, which you probably order, cis white men. Go on, tell people where they can go and listen to you talk or buy some cool stuff and look like us.
Oh, is this my pitch?
Yeah, you can pitch now to this camera here as well, mate.
Okay. If you go on fullreptile.co.uk is the website. At the bottom of the website is the YouTube channel, Instagram channel. So the YouTube channel, if you want any MMA analytics, breakdowns. So Dan does the Picks podcast, which is him and Jamie or him and V, basically breaking down any event. He's going to do a post-fight one soon. And we've got the Full Reptile Radio every other week, which is essentially this sort of nonsense, just with stories about Dan as well. Then there's loads of stuff on the channel. And it's just... It's overflowing with stuff.
Good channel.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I love it.
Have you conducted it? Did you piece it together, or is it your
No,
videographer?
it's the Raptors. The Raptors and Dan and V have sort of fine-tuned that. They've done a wicked job. I mean, anything graphic, visual, if I've ever been needed, I'm for it. But to be fair, as much as this is my baby, the merch, the clothing, the lifestyle brand, if there's a representation of Full Reptile in some way, I've probably drawn it.
Nice.
So I'm super proud of that. But yeah, there's clothes, there's hats, there's all sorts. You just have a look and
mate,
it's
it's a pleasure to be on the journey with you.
Oh, anytime, man. I'm glad to see you.
Guys, you've been a part of the Old Farm Bus, Back of the Bus Sessions podcast. I'll leave you on this. Just be nice to one another, you beautiful set of buggers. See you later.